305 here with you guys, and I haven't been on here for a while, man. Just been busy, school and all that stuff. But just want to say, hope you guys are the summer's looking up for you guys. Hope you guys have been well with your family, loved ones, and everything. The year's been a long year, and I know that gas prices are crazy. Not really trying to go into that, but some things are necessary. Um, you know, um, I think that what the president is doing um, overseas is necessary. I think a lot of short-minded people can't really quite see it yet, but I think that in the long run, whether it be in the next presidency or the upcoming, president will benefit from what the president is doing right now. And with that said, guys, I just kind of want to, go through and watch this visit with China with everyone else. I haven't really seen it. I wanted to watch it, but I was really busy yesterday doing some studying. So today, I think I'm going to go ahead and watch it with my viewers. Sorry, I haven't been able to come on here and watch these things in a long time, probably months. But I've just been swamped with work and swamped at school. And so now I have a little bit of free time. So I might be going live daily again. And with that said, if you guys want to support the channel, go ahead and like, subscribe, and share the video. And I really appreciate that. With that said, let's get started.
You can see old banks hit you with big fees. Not China. You bank fee-free and build your credit.
Let's go.
And now,
You get 5% cash back on any category you choose, like restaurants,
and delivery,
gas, or groceries.
even monthly bills and streaming services. Parking in a high-yield savings account. Voila. We're on vacation, and that is cash back too.
Is that John Cena?
Do bank the old way.
Chime is America's #1 choice for banking.
Pressure.
Radio silence ends, dude.
General Eisenhower, there are two storms advancing towards the Normandy coast.
Absolutely certain.
We have 3 hours. Go or not go.
If it is Hillary, we will lose this war.
If you invade today, thousands of lives lost.
Soldiers, we will accept nothing less than full victory.
Omaha Beach, do you read?
Pressure. The untold true story of D-Day. PG-13. Only theaters May 29th. Special engagements at Dolby Cinema.
China's leader right now descending the steps of the Great Hall of People. This is where this meet and greet will happen, if you will. You can see both the U.S. and the Chinese delegation set up here. China first on your screen right now. President Xi walking by the delegation as he's going to approach and we think greet President Trump at some point right now. These events are ongoing, and we're bringing them to you live as they happen here in Beijing. Our Garrett Hake is also on hand, not too far from where all of this action is happening. Garrett, from your vantage point, what can you see here? We knew the president came with an armada, if you will, of American CEOs to flex sort of that financial and business power of the U.S., but also looking to make some deals here.
CEOs are arrayed behind the U.S. delegation are awaiting the president and some of his top cabinet officials, as well as Marco Rubio, Secretary of Defense here. Trying to speak very quietly to be respectful of the ceremony that gets underway. You see the civil honor guard here. In the Chinese military, there are a few hundred children here with Chinese and American flags. Women greet the president. Of course, the literal.
Thank you guys for joining.
Carpet being laid out here for what is a multi-day state visit with a lot on the agenda here today, Tom.
Yeah, Garrett, we thank you for that. We understand you wanting to be respectful to all the children we see there. As the ceremony is beginning, we see the world-famous beast, of course, the Cadillac that is carrying President Trump as he approaches to meet President Xi Jinping here in Beijing. His second trip as commander-in-chief. You'll remember less than 9 years ago, the president first came here, a much different trip, and the things being negotiated. A lot of them are the same, but hanging over all of this, of course, the war in Iran. And will President Trump ask President Xi for his help in either opening the Strait of Hormuz? You'll remember China and Iran have a very close relationship. China buys 80% of Iran's oil. And also the back of all of this, too, Venezuela, which China had a huge relationship with Venezuela as well, purchasing oil from them as well. It'll be interesting to see how many things they talk about. What does China want? What does the U.S. want? And to answer some of that question, I want to bring in our good friend Gabe Gutierrez, who joins me from our live position here in Beijing. Gabe, the president may want to talk business, but we know the war in Iran Iran is still front and center. And regardless if he says, the financial implications are not weighing his decision-making on Iran, gas prices are very high, the polling is very low.
Yeah, certainly, Tom, and that is something that President Trump, his administration, very conscious of. We heard it right now. We heard it earlier today when Vice President Vance was asked about the president's comments yesterday. President Trump was asked by reporters yesterday, and he said that he did not consider.
As we see our first images of President Trump exiting the beach right now, as he's about to greet President Xi, let's listen in for a moment. Big handshake here. Gave an extended handshake there. We, of course, couldn't hear what the two leaders were saying to each other. As we mentioned, they've met before, as recently as October, correct, in South Korea, where they were also trying to strike some deals here.
That's right, and look, right there, that is the image being seen really around the world. President Trump walking with President Xi. President Trump, as every opportunity he gets, has been talking about the close personal relationship that he has had with President Xi. This is the first time that they've met face-to-face here in China since 2017, but they have met many times during both presidencies, and President Trump inviting President Xi back to Washington later this year. And as we see, both leaders now shaking hands.
Yeah, it looks like the president here is meeting the Chinese delegation, and both military leaders and leaders within China's Communist Party. The military, the PLA right now, President Xi has transformed the military in many ways. In the less than 9 years since the president was last here, China hopes to have the most advanced military in the world, but still admitting that the U.S. has the most powerful military. And here we're going to have President Xi as he's going to meet the American delegation. Just behind that pole, you can't see right now, but that is Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who is now shaking hands with President Xi. Quite interesting, because Rubio had been sanctioned and not invited here for several years, banned essentially from China. We see Secretary Bessent, Pete Hegseth, the Defense Secretary, as well. And it looks like Stephen Miller as well, getting to shake the hand of President Xi.
Yeah, very interesting there. And then right before him, the trade representative Jameson Greer. And that, of course, then you have James Blair, Deputy Chief of Staff, right there. Look, trade looming very high on the agenda list today. That's something that the president and his administration, as you mentioned, hoping to announce some sort of investment deal. That's a major question. What exactly will they be able to come away with? And the president bringing several high-powered, more than a dozen CEOs from the U.S., including the head of Boeing. Could we potentially see an announcement where China agrees to buy several hundred more Boeing planes? That is something that we're watching. It's something that the Trump administration wants to focus on. But yes, as you said, Tom, Iran looming over this.
This is such an interesting image, because a lot of these people that are shaking President Xi's hand right now are China hawks. They've been very tough on China. They have said that essentially in so many words, China is America's enemy, America's greatest competitor. And yet they are here also in China to cut deals. They have to be here with the president in a show of force, if you will, but also in a show of good faith that America wants to negotiate. They want to figure out something with China in the open. And you mentioned it earlier when we were on Nightly News that there will be conversations in public and there will be conversations in private. And it's what happens in private that really matters.
Yeah, exactly right, Tom. And look, President Trump has said that he hopes to have a very long talk with President Xi about Iran. But again, we likely won't see any of that publicly over the next day or so, which, by the way, this is a very long day filled with pomp and pageantry. After this, we expect President Xi and President Trump to head into a bilateral meeting. Cameras will be there to capture the very, very beginning of it. But then the face-to-face private meeting will happen behind closed doors, so we won't see what happens. We won't hear what happens there.
The national anthem, I'm being told, though we can't hear it, the national anthem is being played right now at the Great Hall of People. Garrett Haake is somewhere just behind those children. Actually, we have sound now. Let's listen to it. We're seeing President Trump here now being greeted by school children in China. President Trump seeming to enjoy this spectacle here. Chinese school children jumping up and down with flowers and American flags. Garrett Hake is just behind those school children with a very unique perspective on what's happening right now. He's going to speak in a sort of golf broadcaster tone as to not be rude. Garrett, what can you tell our viewers about what you're witnessing here? China's leader, President Xi, side by side, and soon to be face to face, negotiating, figuring out a slew of issues, including possibly the war in Iran, trade negotiations, the future of AI, and maybe even the future of Chinese EVs. Gabe Gutierrez is joining our coverage here in Beijing, and Gabe, the president sent mixed signals about Chinese EVs. It's a huge factor for the U.S. auto industry, but also U.S. lawmakers who feel that possibly it's a threat to national security if these cars were to come in at very, very low costs.
And look, the president earlier today had suggested that, it's his goal here to open up, to get China to open up more to American companies, not just with EVs, Tom, but also to perhaps get chip manufacturers, AI chips, to be able to go into the Chinese market potentially and allow the U.S. to export more AI chips to China. Of course, that is very controversial. There's a fierce debate about whether that's a good idea given potential national security concerns. And then there are others who say that cutting out China from the AI chip market could make them more self-reliant and cut out the U.S. in the future. So this is certainly something that the president, the Trump administration, they're going to have to walk a very fine line here. But there remain a lot of unanswered questions about what they're going to be able to announce in terms of any investment, perhaps later on today or into tomorrow. Senior administration officials have said that one of their goals here is to talk about rebalancing the relationship between China and the U.S. Could there potentially be some sort of board of investment, a board of trade that the two countries agree on moving forward? So a lot of political observers don't expect any grand bargain here from the two leaders. This might just be perhaps a frame framework for future trade with China. But we've come a long way, Tom, from where the U.S. and China relationship was last year with President Trump imposing those sky-high tariffs. There's been a very fragile truce when it comes to trade since then. But coming out of this high-stakes meeting, where does it go from here? And what does the U.S. accept as a victory here, given this very fragile trade truce that is that has been in effect since last year? But yeah, Tom, you're right. A lot of questions about the future of EV. I know you have said, and I know you were at a car dealership earlier this week, where there has been an incredible, it's remarkable to see some of these EVs produced here in China that can sell for as low as the equivalent of $12,000 if those were to ever make it to the U.S. market. What would happen to U.S. car makers? And could it be a situation where U.S. car makers are face their own issues if Chinese EVs were to ever break through that market?
Dave, we thank you for that. I want to go straight to NBC News' international correspondent Janice Mackey-Freyer. She lives here in Beijing with her family. She covers China for us. Janice, give our viewers a little bit of a perspective and history of where this is taking place right now.
Well, this is happening at the Great Hall of the People, which is on the western side of Tiananmen Square, the Forbidden City in the background with the portrait of Chairman Mao. The place that you see in historical pictures on television, it really is a storied place, and this has been quite a welcome reception for President Trump that China's Xi Jinping has coordinated. You'll recall that President Trump had been quite envious of President Xi's military parade last September. He made some comments about how beautiful it was, and it seems that President Xi has organized a small version of it as a symbol of how important and pivotal this summit could be. Pivotal for a global economy that is going through conflict and trade tension. Both sides will be aware of the optics of this summit as they both look to come out looking strong, both wanting to come out with some headlines, and for Xi Jinping in particular, wanting to ensure that there is some stability for China in its relationship with the United States.
Janice, anything else you've noticed? You've watched a lot of these, you've seen a lot of presidents do these. Is there anything you're noticing that is unique about this ceremony so far?
Well, when President Trump visited back in 2017, it was billed as a state visit plus. They really pulled out all the stops. So in the preparation for this summit, which was of course delayed by the Iran war, there was the sense that somehow China had to offer something that was almost as good, something different. We're going to see them inside the Great Hall of the People in some of the ornate meeting rooms there. In a few hours, Presidents Trump and Xi will take a private tour of the Temple of Heaven. There will be a state banquet later. There will be tea and lunch tomorrow at Zhongnanhai. That is the residence of President Xi, as well as many of the senior Politburo officials, standing committee officials. What we're seeing is the attention to detail that China puts into everything, and people will be looking at what they eat, what they drink, the colors of their ties, who clinks glasses with whom, as indications of the kind of negotiations and discussions that are happening behind closed doors. But we have to bear in mind, and you mentioned this earlier, Tom, this is a much different China that President Trump is visiting over 2017. On the way in from the airport last night, he would have seen the super highways, the infrastructure, the tall buildings, the glitz, the sense that China is now a very prosperous place. And also that globally the mood has shifted, and China is now seeing its influence extended, and Xi Jinping wanting to present himself as a global statesman and as China as this oasis of stability in a world of chaos.
Ultraflex Plus lidocaine and menthol patch to the test. It has superior adhesion and 4-way flexibility to move with your body for up to 8 hours. New BioFreeze Ultraflex Plus.
Real-time location sharing.
It's like 360.
Vehicle breakdowns are costly. If your check engine light comes on tomorrow, the repair could easily cost.
Janice, you know, we're seeing President Xi there look to be somewhat jovial, smiling and almost laughing with President Trump. Is that something you see a lot? Because I'm just thinking back on a lot of the footage we see of China's leader. It's usually pretty stern.
Well, President Trump has talked often about his friendship with Xi Jinping. He talks about him being a gentleman, says that he loves his country, and there does appear to be a good relationship between the two men. That said, they are still competitors, and they're going to be addressing some very thorny issues in these negotiations. Trade tensions, rare earths, critical minerals, tariffs, technology, Taiwan, all of these issues that have long been flashpoints in the U.S.-China relationship. For Xi Jinping, he's probably looking less for friendship out of this than to have some sort of stability, to be able to manage tensions in the relationship in the longer term to give some traction for the Chinese economy. But we will see him being a gracious host. The sort of events and activities that they have planned for this 2-day visit are a notch above what you would see for a lot of visiting heads of state. There's been a lot of hype as well. People on social media are posting videos of the plane arriving last night, of the motorcade going through the city. Traffic is being brought to a standstill so that it's a smooth ride wherever they go. Even we had to adjust last minute, Tom. About 30 minutes before we went on the air, we had a visit from authorities saying that we couldn't stand on our balcony all day, which is why we've shifted slightly indoors. So really, a lot of attention is going into every aspect of this visit to make it memorable.
Thank you. I want to see if we can get to Garrett Hake. He might be scrambling. I see a lot of press running out to enter the Great Hall. Garrett, if you're still with us, if you're still out there, what are you seeing?
Tom, the ceremony here on the Great Hall, or on the sort of steps of the Great Hall, is wrapped up. The delegations have gone inside. The bands are clearing out. There's school children here being congratulated by their teachers for a job well done. I just want to dovetail with what Janice was saying to say that all of what you saw in terms of the pageantry, the attention to detail, is meant to project the same image that China wants to project politically. That is stability. Everything is under control. But for President Trump, that's not necessarily his political style. The thing to watch out of this for all of it, for me, is still going to be the trade focus, the business focus. The president said last night on social media on the way here, he wants to ask China to open up its market. That's ask number 1. It's ask number 2 and 3. He needs the economic boost. But historically, that's something that Western governments have been asking China for 200. And everything you saw here today from the Chinese Communist Party is meant to say, we're in control, we run this town, everything is sort of planned down to the detailed level. And I think that's the situation that the president will walk into when the doors close inside that Great Hall for the private meetings.
All right, Garrett, we thank you for that. We're now looking at the American delegation. You see the cabinet there along with some of the CEOs who, actually, I think this is just going to be the U.S. cabinet right now, the president's cabinet for the bilateral talks between China and the U.S. As they enter here, there'll be an official photo as well. We're waiting for both leaders to enter. I can say, and Gabe, you can back me up on this one, it is sweltering right now in Beijing. It is so hot, and I'm sure the president and China's leader as well are going to be happy to enter the Great Hall. and get to talking and get to negotiating inside the air conditioning.
Yes, certainly. That air conditioning will be huge right there for the delegation. You see Secretary of State Marco Rubio there pointing to something in the ceiling. And yeah, Tom, as you were speaking with Janice, what really struck me was the sort of what passes as a jovial interaction between President Xi and President Trump. You saw President Trump even pat Xi on the shoulder or on his arm several times as they walked around. But now you do see the U.S. delegation there, and top White House aide Stephen Miller, the Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth as well. They're in that room preparing for these bilateral talks, which, you know, it will be interesting to see, Tom, just how long these talks last. Now, we're only going to see the first few seconds of them as cameras are ushered into the room, but then the real negotiation begins between these two superpowers, and something to be a fly on the wall in that room as this all unfolds over the next several hours.
And we're seeing Secretary Bessent right now speaking with the ambassador, David Perdue from the ambassador here in China, who is one of the most important playmakers, right, in all of this. The person who has to live here in Beijing, deal with the relationship, the back and forth, and
there you see, and here was Xi walking into the room. There, President Trump as well. And yes, you said Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is huge in this, in how this is all playing out. Also, the Trade Representative Jamieson Greer. You'll remember, you know, last year both were so instrumental.
We should tell our viewers real quick because they might be getting, you know, some nausea. This is a pool feed. Unclear who's behind the camera right now, but they're trying to set their camera up right now, get on a tripod hopefully, and establish a shot, which it looks like they're about to.
That's right, and then Tom, we should point out, just to pull back the curtain a little bit, this is you know, just a traveling pool of reporters. They are shuffled in there very quickly to try and get this picture. They are scrambling as quickly as they can to get in place and then to battle all the communications issues that you might see some breakup in the picture. But
it looks like they're putting in their earpieces for the real-time translations as they speak to the Chinese. And interesting who President Trump has next to him, right? The ambassador on one side and Secretary of State Marco Rubio on the other?
Yeah, certainly. Look, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, as you know, Tom, wears many hats these days. He's not only Secretary of State, he's also the National Security Advisor, in addition to several other roles in this administration. And yes, it is very interesting to see how how they're all laid out, those top members of the Trump administration.
Let's listen in, Gabe. I think we're going to be able to get some audio. Let's listen.
现在可以说是举世瞩目，当前100年变局加速演进，国际形势是变乱交织，世界走到新的十字路口。中美两国能不能跨越所谓的修昔底德陷阱，开创大国关系的新范式？能不能携手应对全球挑战，为世界注入更多的稳定性？能不能庄严两国人民的福祉和人类前途命运，共同开创两国关系的美好未来？这些可以说是历史之问、世界之问、人民之问，也是我同您作为大国领导人需要共同书写的时代答卷。今年是美国独立250周年，我向你和美国人民表示祝贺。我始终认为，中美之间的共同利益。
Our two countries have more common interests than differences. Success in one is an opportunity for the other. And a stable bilateral relationship is good for the world. China and the United States both stand to gain from cooperation and lose from confrontation. We should be partners, not rivals. We should help each other succeed and prosper together and find the right way for major countries to get along well with each other in the new era. Mr. President, I look forward to our discussions on major issues important to our two countries and the world. And working together with you to set the course for and steer the giant ship of China-U.S. relations. so as to make 2026
成为中美关系继往开来的
a historic landmark year that opens up a new chapter in China-US relations.
我就先
I will
说
pause here and hand over to you, Mr. President. Thank you.
Well, President Xi, I want to thank you very much. First of all, that was an honor like few have ever seen before. And I think I was particularly impressed by those children. They were happy. They were beautiful. The military is obvious. It couldn't be better, but those children were amazing and they represent so much. And I know they represent so much to you. You and I have known each other now for a long time. In fact, the longest relationship of our two countries that any president and president has had. And it's, to me, an honor. We've had a fantastic relationship. We've gotten along. When there were difficulties, we worked it out. I would call you and you would call me. And whenever we had a problem, people don't know, whenever we had a problem, we worked it out very quickly. And we're going to have a fantastic future together. Such respect for China, the job you've done. You're a great leader. I say it to everybody, you're a great leader. Sometimes people don't like me saying it, but I say it anyway because it's true. I only say the truth. And I just want to say on behalf of all of the great delegation that we have the greatest businessmen, the biggest, and I guess the best in the world. We have amazing people and they're all with me. Every single one of them, we asked the top 30 in the world, every single one of them said yes. And I didn't want the second or the third in the company. I wanted only the top. And they're here today to pay respects to you and to China. And they look forward to trade and doing business. And it's going to be totally reciprocal on our behalf. So I really look very much forward to our discussion. It's a big discussion. There are those that say this is maybe the biggest summit ever. They can never remember anything like it. I can say in the United States, people aren't talking about anything else. But it's an honor to be with you. It's an honor to be your friend. And the relationship between China and the USA is going to be better than ever before. Thank you very much. Thank you.
From stinky diapers to stinky feet, odors can be caused by bacteria that linger in your air. Unlike air fresheners, Lysol Air Sanitizer eliminates odors by killing 99.9% of odor-causing bacteria in the air. Scent can't sanitize, Lysol can.
Really? $200 to be that family? You're better off at Topgolf, where you and your family can have a good time at a fair price. No argument there.
Fiverr Pro is where I find highly skilled talent across emerging areas like AI software development and complex web problems. Their freelancers cover everything. See for yourself, go to pro.fiverr.com to hire vetted experts.
We've just been listening to China's leader, Xi Jinping. Sounds like President Trump. Okay. We were waiting to see if President Trump was going to say more. Sounds like they're moving the cameras out, Gabe, which is a sign that the bilateral talks will soon begin. Very, very simpatico, if you will, at least from the get-go, the beginning of this bilateral meeting. And the president paying a lot of compliments, a lot of flattery to the leader of China. And you just wonder if that flattery comes just before a lot of asks.
That's exactly right, Tom. You know, it struck me, the body language and also just how both leaders approached that opening statement. President Xi, very measured, hanging on every word. President Trump, at least seeming to speak off the cuff, as he likes to do. Very taken aback by the welcome ceremony that he had received, both right there at the Great Hall and also the night before, getting that red carpet welcome. And yes, in terms of the asks, this is where the road will meet the road, right? What will the U.S. ask China in exchange for possibly these investments in the U.S. that we've been hearing so much about? What will China ask for when it comes to perhaps Taiwan? That's an issue that we've been talking about a lot leading up to the summit. Will President Trump make an ask regarding Iran, as he has been giving mixed signals of whether he will do or not? Does he want some sort of concession from the Chinese when it comes to the Strait of Hormuz or not?
Gabe, stand by for us. I do want to bring in our good friend Rush Doshi. He's director of the China Strategy Initiative at the Council on Foreign Relations, and he served as deputy senior director for China and Taiwan on President Biden's National Security Council. And someone I spoke to at length before my trip here, my reporting trip here in Beijing. It's great to speak with you. You are someone who has made a career of watching China. Give me your first observations of what we've seen so far and what each leader was saying there at the table.
Well, thanks, Tom. Great to be with you. And I'll just say two things come to mind right off the bat. First, the circumstances of this pageantry were really kind of remarkable and clearly had an impact on President Trump. But I will say it comes slightly below, I think, what we saw 9 years ago when President Trump last came to Beijing. Still, nonetheless, quite affecting, clearly, for the president, as you can hear from his opening remarks. The second thing you take away is watching the contrast between President Trump and President Xi's opening remarks is really quite significant. It's often the case that both sides are prepared these opening remarks and read them. Now, President Xi basically did do that. President Trump is speaking almost entirely extemporaneously.
What do you think President Trump is going to be asking for here? What's at the top of his list? What's at the top of China's list?
I think President Trump has a few priorities. Let's just say both sides are looking for stability right now in the relationship. And this meeting is a lot more about symbolism than it is about substance. But I think President Trump does have a few specific things in mind, particularly on the trade side of the relationship. There, as we've heard today, he wants to finally secure the sale of American Boeing aircraft to China, as well as agricultural products like soybeans and beef. And there's some talk that possibly he'll outline with President Xi a new Board of Investment and Board of Trade, which will help govern the trade and investment relationships between the two countries in a more managed way than would ordinarily be the case through, the normal market. But more than that, I think there's going to be a desire on both sides to have this meeting look like a success. And the important thing is that the symbolism here is going to be as important as anything else. If the meeting looks good, I think both sides will walk away feeling that it went well.
And then China, you would think their top priority with the U.S., would it concern AI chips? Would it concern Chinese EVs? Would it concern anything in the Strait of Hormuz and trying to get more tankers out? There have been reports that Chinese tankers, Iran has let some of the Chinese tankers through.
Yeah, and that's a good point. In addition, on the U.S. side to seeking, some kind of progress on trade issues, Iran is a key issue for this summit. And we know that President Trump has been saying, and that his team has said publicly, that he will be pressuring President Xi on the Iran question. In particular, I think President Trump is seeking a few things. One is he wants China to stop buying as much Iranian oil. And he also doesn't want to see, and we've been reporting today, that China might supply Iran weapons, either overtly or covertly, that could be used against the United States. That is fresh news today. And the reality is that the U.S. is going to ask that not occur. And from the Chinese perspective, the top priority, in addition to having a stable meeting that basically puts the U.S. competitive posture back into a box, they're also going to want to see the U.S. maybe make some progress on Taiwan. They want to see the U.S. position change. The Chinese side has been telegraphing now for many, many weeks that they expect that Taiwan will be raised by President Xi and it will be a big issue. And what specifically they want is for the U.S. to change its Taiwan policy for the first time in 40 years, as well as to pre-negotiate with China on the question of what weapons the U.S. sells to Taiwan, something that is against U.S. policy but a top priority for President Xi.
I'm being told President Xi just said that the U.S. and China should be partners, not competitors. Do you think he's being honest?
Well, the language that we heard from President Xi was not atypical. Having staffed some of these previous summits for President Biden, and many of these videos are available online for viewers who might be interested, you can see President Xi says the same kind of things in these settings. It's careful, it's measured, it's positive. And yes, he'll say stuff like, we're partners, not rivals, although realistically, China acts in many ways as if we are intense competitors, rivals, and potentially future adversaries as well. So you have to say the right things in a setting like this and maybe elide over the facts just a bit. President Trump, notably, though, very different, of course, not reading from any kind of prepared script the way most American leaders would in a situation like this. Really just speaking off the cuff, talking about how the pageantry really moved him, as well as talking about how he hopes that this summit, which is, as he put it, the biggest summit ever, as some are saying, is a success. And that, is pretty sincere.
Rush, we thank you for your time. Gabe, walk our viewers through what we're going to expect over the next coming hours.
Well, over the next several hours, this bilateral meeting will unfold. Then the president will head to the Temple of Heaven, a historic site here in Beijing, before later on tonight, a historic state banquet the president will attend with President Xi before some final meetings tomorrow. But a lot unfolding here over the next couple hours, Tom.
All right, Gabe Gutierrez, part of our team here reporting on the president's historic visit to China. We're going to pause now for an NBC News special report.
This is an NBC News special report. Here's Tom Llamas.
And good day. We are coming on the air live from Beijing as we cover the historic summit between President Trump and China's leader Xi Jinping. The bilateral talks have just begun in the Great Hall of People here in Beijing, just outside the Forbidden City. We are covering every moment, again, of this historic trip, the second time President Trump has come here to China as the commander-in-chief. So much on the table right now, the war with Iran, the war for AI, and really the global supremacy of each of these superpowers. Who will come out on top? President Xi just telling President Trump that they are not competitors, they are partners. We will see what is negotiated, what is discussed, and who comes out on top. Gabe Gutierrez, part of our team here in Beijing. The president comes here and says he does not need China and trying to solve what's happening in Iran, but we know that China is Iran's biggest ally.
Yeah, certainly, and China has a lot of interest to find out what will happen with this conflict in Iran. And President Trump and administration officials have signaled that they will try to lean on China to try and bring this war in Iran to a close by reopening the Strait of Hormuz. China, of course, importing so much oil from Iran, some 80 to 90% of Iran's oil. But there are many other issues looming over this summit, Tom, including, you mentioned AI, also the future of Taiwan. And the question here, does China make some sort of ask to President Trump to shift or change, however slightly, the U.S. policy towards Taiwan?
And we can't stress this enough, the president bringing 30 of the top CEOs of America here to essentially say, I'm coming to China, but I want to talk business.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Tom. And the president and his administration want the U.S. to announce some sort of investment deal with China.
Gabe, we thank you. We'll have much more coverage of the president's China summit on your late local news on our streaming channel, NBC News Now. We thank you. Thank you for joining our coverage here. We're continuing our coverage here on the bilateral talks between President Trump and China's leader Xi Jinping. We are watching this moment by moment, the president arriving earlier to the Great Hall of People just outside the Forbidden City in Beijing, walking side by side with President Xi and saying that they have a long relationship, claiming that they have the longest relationship of any Chinese leader and U.S. president. This is the president's second trip as commander-in-chief to China. And there's a lot to discuss, whether it be on the front of Iran and what's happening there with the war, or with business back home in America. The president bringing not only members of his cabinet, but also 30 of the top CEOs in America to talk business. Gabe Gutierrez is part of our reporting team here, covers the White House, and covering this trip with me as we see these moments by moments, these moments happen moment by moment, I should say. Gabe, they're inside right now negotiating, talking face to face inside those bilateral talks. And each country obviously has their priorities, and each country is going to want something, and each country may have to sacrifice something.
Yeah, and look, we were talking earlier, Tom, about these CEOs that are here on this trip, and what does the U.S. offer in exchange for some extra Chinese investment in some of these U.S. companies. Something else that has come up in anticipation of this trip is the issue of soybeans and whether the U.S. will ask China to make good on some of the commitments that it previously said to buy soybeans from the U.S., which are so critical to American farmers. But right now, we will have to wait and see whether we do hear from the U.S. about whether they do end up asking China about the issue that is looming over this summit significantly, is the issue of Iran and what concessions, if any, the U.S. makes in order for China to perhaps lean on Iran to bring this conflict to an end. The U.S. comes to this summit with much less leverage than it did perhaps last year, given what's unfolded in the Middle East over the last several weeks. The president feeling domestic pressure as well politically, especially after his comments just yesterday, Tom, or earlier this week, where he said that he was not making or not taking Americans' financial situation into consideration when it comes to the war in Iran, that he was simply focused on preventing Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. Politicians in the U.S. From the Republican Party, including the Vice President today and also House Speaker Mike Johnson, trying to clean up those remarks, trying to make the case that yes, the U.S. does care about Americans' financial situations, but this all comes amid an unfolding midterm election campaign where Republicans are very weary of where they will be in a few months, given the rise in gas prices. Now, the Trump administration trying to pivot from that, trying to make the case that the president is focused on affordability, and trying to highlight what the Trump administration could come out of these talks, perhaps by announcing some of these investment deals, which they argue will be good for the U.S. economy. But incredible talks unfolding right now behind closed doors with these two superpowers coming face to face here in China for the first time in almost a decade.
All right, Gabe, thank you. I want to bring in NBC's business and data correspondent, Brian Chung. Brian, I learned a lot since I've been down here. One of the things is that Apple is a company that many young people truly admire in China. They have Apple Watches, they have Apple iPads and iPhones. They think it is the gold standard when it comes to sort of personal computing. And I wonder if that's one of the reasons why Tim Cook is here. I'm sure there are many others. But with Tim Cook and Elon Musk, it's clear the president wanted to bring people that not only are successful in their disciplines of business, but also people that the Chinese people know and respect.
Yeah, and Tom, you put it quite plainly, and I think appropriately, in saying that bringing all of these major CEOs to China is in and of itself a posturing from the United States that we want to walk out of here with a deal and look no further than the types of industries that are represented by those that were on the steps of the Renmin Dahuitang, which is the Mandarin, the English version is the Great Hall of the People. There were the images of that American delegation on the steps, and of course in that first front row were all of the cabinet members, but on the second row you did see some of those CEOs. Apple's Tim Cook was there. You also had Elon Musk representing Tesla. There were a number of Wall Street executives as well, from Goldman Sachs as well as Citigroup. Jensen Huang, who is with NVIDIA. Obviously, artificial intelligence is a major part of these discussions as well, making a last-minute addition, had to join the president in Alaska to join Air Force One as part of a last-minute call, according to sources to me. But again, this is all about trying to get those deals done. As you point out, technology is a big one. China is one of the largest exporters of electronics goods, but as you point out, it shows how intertwined our two countries are. That the Chinese love American products like Apple iPhones as well.
Yeah, Brian, we thank you. I want to bring in NBC News International correspondent Janice Mackey-Frayer. Janice, you're somebody who watches China for us day in, day out. What did you notice from at least President Xi's opening remarks to the president?
Who's the smartest of them all?
You will be with Finished Ultimate Quantum. Each pod costs less per wash than Cascade and now has 50% more cleaning power.
Unbeatable clean.
Unbeatable value. Switch to Finish Ultimate Quantum.
make me feel so miserable.
Flonase relieves your worst allergy symptoms, so you can start feeling better the same day. Save your relationship with nature. Flonase.
Wicked, flip it, drumstick it! Your next breakdown could be anytime, anywhere.
Get covered today and make Endurance pay for it. It was like almost a $6,000 job. Endurance covered it.
Right now, you can get $300 off any plan. So call and get your free quote now.
I have completely abandoned ChatGPT. It just keeps failing me time after time after time, and I can't stand it. I now only use Manus. When I ask Manus to do something, it actually gives me a final product, and ChatGPT just walks me through a billion steps on how to get something done. Like, check this out. I'm gonna go ahead and hit build website. Let me type in my prompt. So I've typed in a simple prompt about building a pizza shop website. Let's go ahead and see what it can do. I kid you not, all I had to do was wait. I got an entirely finished website, everything laid out, fully interactable, customizable, and publishable at a single click.
Give it a try. Download now.
Well, as you were talking about before, every word seemed measured. Every word was chosen, and because words are symbols of where the leadership is thinking. And it seemed friendlier than probably a lot of other opening remarks that President Xi has made to visiting dignitaries. He talked about wanting to have cooperation with the United States, that they should be partners and not rivals, that they are still very fierce competitors, and that competition touches a lot of issues. It's technology, trade, tariffs, artificial intelligence, Taiwan. So there are a lot of issues that are on the agenda. But the one thing that both of these men seem intent to achieve is some sense of calm, of extending the trade truce, of reaching some sort of understanding between them, perhaps opening new channels of communication, and in the longer term, managing the tensions in this very important relationship at a time when there's so much turmoil in the world and having an impact on the global economy. So if there is no other deliverable in this summit, that could be it, this idea that they're walking away with evidence that the two sides can get along.
Janice, stand by for us. I do want to bring in Rush Doshi. He's director of the China Strategy Initiative at the Council on Foreign Relations, and he's also served as a deputy senior advisor, a director, I should say, for China and Taiwan on President Biden's National Security Council. Let's talk Taiwan, Rush, right now. How much does China want to talk Taiwan? How much does the U.S. want to talk Taiwan? Because the Secretary of State has made it very clear that he thinks everyone wants the Taiwan situation to essentially be status quo, but that may not necessarily be what China wants.
Yeah, I mean, the longstanding U.S. position is that we want peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait. The problem, though, is that Beijing has slightly greater ambition. They'd like to basically have a bit more of a change in the U.S. approach to Taiwan, and particularly some of our policy on Taiwan. They want to see that maybe be adjusted by the president, either extemporaneously or as part of some negotiation. That includes also the arms sales component. The U.S. does provide Taiwan with weapons, has for a long time, and there's a hope in I think, Beijing that maybe that could change as well. In addition, we have to just understand why Taiwan matters so much to the world. I mean, this is the place that builds all of the chips that go into all of the data centers that are doing artificial intelligence across the United States. Google coming out and saying they will do about $1 trillion of CapEx, capital expenditure, the AI data centers, all those chips, by and large, coming from Taiwan. So Taiwan is the most important issue in many ways that these two leaders could be discussing. It is certainly the most sensitive, but it's also the one where the gap may be the biggest. China wants to ultimately see movement and progress towards unification with Taiwan. The U.S. wants the status quo to continue. And in this meeting, the question for the president will be, will he change U.S. policy on Taiwan or keep things as they've been for about 40 years?
How much is Taiwan watching these negotiations and these talks as they go back and forth? It seems like anytime any country visits Taiwan, makes a trade deal with Taiwan, they immediately are in trouble with China.
I mean, if you're in Taiwan right now, you're watching a meeting between the US president and the Chinese president with some degree of concern. It's often the case. There's always a bit of anxiety about what exactly is going to be discussed on the question of Taiwan itself, and they realize they don't have direct control over that agenda. Right now, I think that there's a sense that the relationship between the US and China is in a period of sort of détente or some stability. Maybe that also takes the Taiwan issue down a notch. That's the more positive view. The other view is that this détente or stability gives Beijing license to do more in the Strait than it would otherwise do. Maybe it would put more pressure, for example, on Taiwan that would otherwise be conceivable because it has confidence maybe the US won't push back. So the administration has been quite clear. On Sunday, we heard from senior administration officials that there's not going to be a change in our Taiwan policy. That's their plan. That's what they're saying. No big change. But if the President of the United States decides to do something different, that's up to him. And the line right now from the Chinese side is maybe, and you hear this from think tanks and academics and folks connected, maybe President Xi will offer something President Trump really wants, like trillions of dollars of investment in the United States, maybe into electric vehicles, and the price for that very favorable deal would be a change in Taiwan policy. That is what is possible. I think it's not likely. The administration is saying it won't happen, but the president is the president.
Okay, Rush, we thank you. Stand by for us. Gabe Gutierrez joins our coverage once again. Gabe, people are watching this and saying the president is now in China, but back at home, our gas prices are going higher and higher, grocery prices are going higher, inflation is growing higher. When will the president solve what's happening in Iran to settle the domestic situations?
Well, look, the president said that this conflict would only last, 4 to 6 weeks. We're well past that. And so, yes, there is a lot of frustration building in the U.S. Among everyday Americans, but also among the Republican Party, as I was saying earlier. A question here is, will President Trump go to President Xi, and it's not just about the Strait of Hormuz, but it's also potentially China providing weapons to Iran. The president essentially acknowledged that that was still happening, even though it's something the Trump administration is obviously against. Will President Xi come to some sort of acknowledgement or agreement, perhaps, with President Trump behind closed doors? But this all comes, this ongoing conflict in Iran, the cost is also going up significantly. We heard from administration officials just this week that the cost has gone already from $25 billion to $29 billion and expected to keep going up and up and up. And yes, frustration is building among members of the president's own party. So the president under pressure here on the Iran situation, you'll remember, Tom, he postponed this trip in the first place because of the conflict in Iran. He felt that he needed to come here even with the conflict still ongoing because he wants to win here. As the previous guest just said, it could be, and as Janice also just said, it could be that the president really wants to project stability here. That's something China wants as well. We'll see how this all unfolds in the next couple hours.
Gabe, thank you. I want to bring back Brian Chung. Brian, we've talked about 2 of the 3 T's when we talk about China and the U.S. We've talked Taiwan, tech, but what about tariffs?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you rewind to last year, it's been a real roller coaster on tariffs. Again, at one point during the tariff wars, the United States was threatening a 145% tariff on anything coming in from China. And business leaders that I was speaking to here stateside were telling me that is a non-starter. At that point, it's effectively an embargo because you're not going to import anything at those costs. Now, when it comes to the U.S. trade relationship with China, it is worth remembering that outside of our neighbors to the north and south, obviously for geographical reasons, China is our biggest partner. They're our 3rd largest trade partner behind Canada and Mexico. It accounts for about $88 billion in trade just this year, 6% of total trade worldwide. And I think that when you talk about the president bringing this entourage of CEOs with him, this is all about trying to get some of those billions of dollars in commitments like he has walked away from other country negotiations with tariffs. You have to remember, when it comes to Boeings, this is going to be far from the first time the president might try to get a country to buy Boeings as part of tariff negotiations. That happened with Indonesia, it happened with Japan, it happened with Bahrain. So something that I've kind of heard, which is a bit cheeky, is that this could be about the 3 Bs: Boeings, beef, and soybeans. Soybeans were part, I want to remind everyone, of the trade negotiations last year. Is there going to be follow-up on that? If the president walks away with some big purchase agreement on any of those Bs, the president might see that as a huge win.
All right, Brian, I want to get back to Rush. Rush, there's a huge issue, we've talked about this before, about American-made computer chips, these AI chips that are so important. One of the reasons why NVIDIA is here, and there's a great debate on whether China should get these chips, and it sounds like they are, but there's still a lot of back and forth. And the thinking is that anytime something is sold to China, anytime business is done with China, China has a lot of people. They can always buy a lot of goods, but they tend to also take that and steal that IT and steal that IP and try to sell it on their own.
Yeah, there's a big question right now. I mean, we saw that Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, joined the delegation with President Trump really at the last minute. He hadn't been invited. The president got wind of those reports. I think he was concerned by them, invited Jensen Huang to join, and Jensen flew to Alaska where he jumped on the president's plane when it was undergoing refueling. He and Elon Musk were the only CEOs on Air Force One, and you have to wonder what they spoke about on Air Force One for a lot of that trip. My guess is that probably Jensen Huang was asking the president to make it easier for the United States to sell advanced AI chips to China. And that's a highly controversial issue. Right now, in many ways, the bipartisan view in Congress is that really those chips should be reserved for American companies because there's simply not enough of them. They're all made in Taiwan and a handful of facilities. And the view is there's a shortage that should go to Americans before they go to China, which could use that to create AI models that might not be in our self-interest. So this is a huge debate. There's a lot of people in that delegation who have differing views on that topic, including at that table next to President Trump. And right now, the administration has signaled there's not going to be a big change on the policy. They're not going to open up the ability for our companies to sell the best, very best semiconductors and chips.
Plan B made over-the-counter emergency contraception available more than 20 years ago. So when it matters, the choice is mine. That's freedom to be.
Plan B is the #1 OBGYN recommended emergency contraceptive.
We kill the guesswork. My team uses Fiverr freelancers to test absolutely everything, and this constant feedback loop allows us to see what's working and what absolutely isn't. Head to fiverr.com/diary for 10% off on your first order.
This is Eric. When he got injured in a car accident, he called Morgan & Morgan. He not only gets a lawyer, he gets trial lawyers like Sam and Jessica, who are in it to win it. He gets his own investigators with briefcases, leather ones. And if you ever have questions, our customer service folks keep things rolling. Injured? We're your army. Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm.
To China. That being said, it's the president's decision too, and folks are watching. Will we see this be another area, along with Boeing aircraft and beef and soybeans? Will we be adding chips to the list of things that the U.S. might be selling to China?
We're going to have to wait and see, Rush. We thank you for all of your perspective. Gabe, again, for our viewers that are just tuning in, watching the beginning of these bilateral talks between President Xi and President Trump here in Beijing, the list of events that's going to happen here, there are a series of events over the next 2 days. It's a jam-packed schedule.
Yeah, that's right. Look, this bilateral meeting will unfold over the next couple of minutes or so, next hour or so. And then President Trump heads to the Temple of Heaven, an iconic historic site here in Beijing. It's where emperors used to pray for a good harvest. And metaphorically, that is something that both countries say they want from this trip, some sort of cooperation. At least that's what's being said publicly. So yes, the visit, the tour of the Temple of Heaven later on this afternoon, and then a state banquet later on tonight before the president meets with President Xi again tomorrow morning, and then heads back to Washington. But a lot of issues, as you've been discussing, still on the table here. We'll see what sort of concrete announcement the Trump administration walks away from here. But both countries looking to project this image of stability, and as we just heard from their opening remarks.
In the lead up to this, the president was getting hammered with questions about domestic gas prices, about the war in Iran, what's going to happen. He seemed to get frustrated at times with some of these questions. He had wanted to put the Iran war behind him before he got here. That's clearly impossible. He may have started this summit talking about Iran. He may end up talking about it by the end of it.
Yeah, certainly. Look, it's unclear whether the president will, how he will interact with reporters. Certainly, the main question will be what ends up happening with the war in Iran, and did he bring it up with President Xi? The White House, look, is trying to figure out its messaging when it comes to what the president said earlier this week, as we've been discussing about his comments about Americans' financial situation, and that's something that the White House, frankly, over the last day or so, has tried to have to clean up, both with the vice president and with the House Speaker. But President Trump reiterating that message that he wants his base, his voters, to know is that he did this because he wants to prevent Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. Unclear, how this all shakes out. We do expect the White House, whatever announcement they do end up coming out with, they'll want to focus on the economy, not the war in Iran.
This is an unimportant question. The president, will he take questions? Will he do any type of news conference? He's never afraid to talk to reporters or to answer questions, but will that happen? Do we think that's going to happen before he leaves China?
At this point, it remains up in the air. He is here, as you said, with more than a dozen CEOs. There's nothing this White House would want more than to have some sort of event, perhaps, with some of these CEOs to announce some sort of deal, whether it be potentially the announcement of China agreeing to buy some Boeing jets. That's something that the president would love to be able to come out and say. But right now, what's unfolding behind those closed doors, as we look at those pictures from just a little bit earlier of President Trump walking with President Xi, the rubber is meeting the road as we speak during those bilateral talks.
Gabe Gutierrez, we thank you for your coverage here. We're going to be back here live with you as soon as President Trump emerges from the closed-door summit. As always, we have much more ahead on NBC News Now and online at NBCNews.com. I'm Tom Yams reporting live from Beijing. We thank you for watching.
Tomorrow on the Today Show, Craig Melvin has an exclusive interview with Murdoch's legal team. They're going to talk about the ruling and what comes next for Alec Murdoch. And then on Friday, you can tune into Dateline as they dig further into today's decision to upend one of the country's highest profile murder cases. All of that is coming up, but don't go anywhere.
There's a saying in the West that a cowboy is a man with guts and a horse. This is the story of one.
David Muir, ABC's World News Tonight, America's most watched newscast, now streaming same day with all the breaking news of the day on Disney Plus. Most watched, most trusted. now on Disney Plus every night.
Tonight, the growing fallout from the war with Iran, more airlines threatened by rising fuel prices, a new attack in the Strait of Hormuz, and the new poll, what Americans say about the direction of the country. First, the growing turbulence in air travel. More than 24 hours after Spirit Airlines shut down operations, many passengers still stranded, forced to pay higher ticket prices on other carriers just to get home. Spirit pinning much of the blame on the soaring cost of jet fuel, and tonight the other airlines now facing similar pressure, some imposing new surcharges, and the request for financial relief from the Trump administration. A cargo ship attacked near the Strait of Hormuz, swarmed by multiple small boats. President Trump rejecting Iran's latest proposal to end the war, calling it not acceptable, and what he said late today about guiding vessels through the strait. Plus, our new poll tonight, President Trump's disapproval rating reaching a new record. Also tonight, the search intensifies for 2 American soldiers who went missing in Morocco. They were taking part in a military exercise and may have fallen off a cliff into the sea. The frightening scene on board a United Airlines flight, a passenger allegedly attacking a flight attendant before trying to breach the cockpit. And new details just coming in, a different United jet clipping a light pole, its wheel appearing to hit a truck while landing in New Jersey. A car crashing into an athletic club and bursting into flames. Police robots later removing multiple homemade explosives and propane tanks. What police now say about the driver who was killed. Temperature whiplash, millions coast to coast will go from summer to spring and back again. History at the Kentucky Derby, a long shot takes the race, and the first time a woman has trained the winning horse. And America Strong tonight, some are calling him a miracle baby, born twice after a rare surgery.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight.
Good evening. It's great to have you with us on this Sunday. I'm Whit Johnson. We begin tonight with growing fears over the future of air travel. More than 24 hours after Spirit Airlines abruptly shut down, some other carriers are now worried about their financial stability. The ripple effect of Spirit ceasing operations still being felt across the country, many stranded passengers forced to pay hundreds of dollars more to reach their destinations. Spirit placing much of the blame on the soaring cost of jet fuel triggered by the war with Iran for putting the company out of business. Now, some other airlines are increasing bag fees, shifting routes, and asking the Trump administration for financial relief. All of this as the summer travel season is set to kick into high gear. ABC's Morgan Norwood leads us off from Newark Airport tonight.
Travelers across the country are racing to rebook tonight after one of America's most recognizable budget airlines halts operations. More than 24 hours after Spirit Airlines' last flight landed in Dallas, stranded passengers paying hundreds more out of pocket, more than what they did with Spirit just to get home.
$1,600 for the flight for today, but we had to call someone to help us because we couldn't afford it.
We had to book new flights with a different airline. It's just been us here with 3 kids.
Others trying to navigate refunds with little clarity on when they'll see their money again.
They did not give us any refund.
Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy addressing the chaos.
United, Delta, JetBlue, and Southwest are capping their ticket prices for Spirit customers. It's going to vary between the airlines.
And now, growing concerns tonight that cheap air travel could soon be harder to find. Ahead of the busy summer travel season, experts say passengers are left with fewer budget options and higher prices now.
Competition is the single biggest reason that we see cheap flights exist. And so prices are likely to increase in an already challenging market where we're seeing average price of airfare is up 14% year over year.
With skyrocketing jet fuel costs amid the war in Iran pushing Spirit over the edge, new concerns the increased costs will bring other airlines closer to the brink. Those low-cost carriers feeling the pressure, some already raising checked bag fees, others cutting or shifting routes. But one industry group made up of Allegiant, Avelo, Frontier, and Sun Country Airlines requesting $2.5 billion in financial relief from the Trump administration, citing those sky-high fuel costs. And now growing debate whether taxpayer dollars should be used to prop up struggling airlines. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy telling me a bailout is unnecessary.
I would say that at this point, I don't think it's necessary. They do have access to cash. If they want to come to the U.S. government We would be a lender of last resort if they can find dollars in the private markets.
And tonight, as passengers face a new aviation frontier, Spirit's 17,000 employees now out of a job.
Hey Spirit, my guys at American, good luck to y'all. Sorry to hear what happened.
In an emotional air traffic control call-out, American Airlines pilots saying farewell.
Well, it was a pleasure working with you guys, and I wish you the best.
And what we are just learning from Spirit, about 1,500 crew members have already been returned home, with more still on their way tonight. They also say that most customers who booked with a credit card have already been refunded. Whit?
Yes, the impact being felt by so many. Morgan Norwood, we appreciate it.
Sometimes, the sweet smell of victory stinks. Adding Lysol laundry sanitizer kills 99.9% of odor-causing bacteria detergents leave behind. Clean is good, sanitized is better.
Alibaba.com. Connect with verified suppliers and shop with trade assurance.
I've had 2 claims for over $4,300.
But does Endurance raise your rate the more claims you file?
No. Your rate stays the same no matter how many claims you file.
Right now, you can get $300 off any plan, plus a year of elite benefits, a $2,000 value free, all backed by a 30-day money-back guarantee. Go online or call 1-866-288-4067 for a free quote.
Does your vibe-coded website look like this or this? Very bland and boring, but want it looking like this or this?
Minus makes website building easy. Select Build Website. Enter the site or UI you want to replicate. No need to do it yourself. Just wait a moment. Minus will deliver a website you'll love. Leave the website building to Minus.
Give it a try. Download now.
Next tonight, President Trump is rejecting Iran's latest proposal to end the war. The president calling it, quote, not acceptable, saying Iran hasn't paid a big enough price for what they've done over the last 47 years. Here's ABC's Tom Sufi Burridge in Tel Aviv tonight.
With trade through that critical waterway, the Strait of Hormuz, still blocked, President Trump tonight announcing a new plan to help guide cargo ships linked to countries not involved in the war to safety. Posting on social media, the president writing, quote, for the good of Iran, the Middle East and the United States, we have told these countries that we will guide their ships safely out of these restricted waterways so they can freely and ably get on with their business. The president's announcement coming after another cargo vessel was reportedly attacked by multiple small craft off the coast of Iran, according to the British Navy's monitoring group. It's recorded more than 40 incidents of vessels attacked, damaged or turned back in or near the Strait of Hormuz since the war began, and says 20,000 seafarers are trapped on ships which can't sail out. Tonight, President Trump saying in his post, many of the ships are running low on food, and suggesting Iran and the US will both be part of the new, quote, humanitarian gesture to let the ships sail free. The president's announcement coming amid a deadlock in peace talks with Iran. The president calling the latest Iranian proposal not acceptable, according to Israeli TV. That Iranian proposal submitted Saturday to Pakistani mediators. Iranian state media said it called for US forces to withdraw and a lifting of sanctions and the US naval blockade. But the report made no reference to key US demands over what's left of Iran's nuclear program. And with President Trump offering few details on how cargo vessels linked to neutral countries will be guided safely out of the Strait of Hormuz, the president saying it will begin tomorrow morning, and any interference will, quote, have to be dealt with forcefully.
Okay, Tom Sufi Burridge, thanks so much. Now to the economic and political fallout from the war. A new ABC News Washington Post Ipsos poll shows that 2/3 of Americans say the country is headed in the wrong direction. A majority disapprove of President Trump's handling of the economy and the war with Iran. But do Democrats fare much better? Here's ABC's senior White House correspondent, Selena White.
Tonight, as the war with Iran drives gas prices to a 4-year high, new polling shows 2/3 of Americans say the country is headed in the wrong direction. President Trump's disapproval rating hitting a record 62%, and the president underwater on every issue tested: cost of living, inflation, the war with Iran, and the economy. On the campaign trail, Trump had promised to lower the cost of living.
We're going down and getting gasoline below $2 a gallon, bring down the price of everything from electricity rates to groceries, airfares, and housing costs.
But now gas prices surging to an average of $4.43 a gallon nationwide. Americans forced to make trade-offs. 44% say they've cut back on driving. 42% say they've cut other household expenses.
Yeah, I cut down on groceries a little bit because gas is just more of an expense now. I used to not think about it.
Jet fuel costs have nearly doubled since the war began. The Trump administration insists the pain is temporary.
Once the strait opens, you'll see prices come down immediately.
But experts say it could take more than a year for gas prices to return to pre-war levels. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy pressed by her Martha Raddatz.
Energy prices have come up. You're right. And again, you have to look at the president to say, what does a leader do? What does a president do when he sees a potential nuclear Iran? He's not going to tolerate it.
But despite Trump's numbers, the poll shows that Americans do not trust Democrats much more on the issues. Of the 11 issues tested, Democrats are only trusted more on 3 issues: healthcare, education, and the cost of living with.
Selena Wang at the White House tonight. Thank you. Overseas now to the massive search for 2 U.S. service members who went missing during an annual military training exercise in Morocco. Let's bring in ABC's Lama Hassan. And Lama, this appears to be an accident.
Yeah, that's right. With a U.S. official telling ABC News there is no indication of foul play. And tonight, an urgent and massive search and rescue operation by ground, air, and sea is underway in southwestern Morocco. The U.S. and Morocco deploying drones, helicopters, and naval vessels, as well as mobilizing mountaineers and divers, scouring the waters off the coast to try to find them. These service members who are in the army were reported missing on Saturday. They were taking part in an annual multinational military exercise called the African Lion Exercises, involving some 5,000 troops and personnel from 40 countries. Officials saying while the incident remains under investigation, their focus right now is on those service members and their families. Whit.
All right, Lama Hassan, our thanks to you. We're following a disturbing incident on a United Airlines flight. Authorities say a passenger tried to enter the cockpit, and on a different flight, this heart-stopping moment right here, a plane clipped a light pole, its wheel appearing to hit a truck while coming in for landing. Here's ABC's Andrew Dimber.
Ground United 1837, what's declared emergency? It seems like someone just attacked one of our flights.
Tonight, an emergency aboard a United Airlines flight after a passenger allegedly attacked a flight attendant and made a move towards the cockpit.
Gentleman just attacked one of the flight attendants and trying to open the floor meeting door.
Oh my God.
Trying to gain access to the flight deck.
All right, we're calling.
Air traffic control audio capturing the emergency and calls for police as the flight from the Dominican Republic was taxiing at Newark International Airport Saturday.
We're at the front gate ASAP. We need to be met by law enforcement.
Police say officers moved in after the plane arrived at the gate and detained a 48-year-old male without incident who was taken to the hospital for psychiatric evaluation. One crew member was offered medical attention but declined. And late today, yet another incident involving a United flight at Newark Airport. A plane coming in for a landing, hitting a truck and a light pole on the New Jersey Turnpike before safely taxiing on the runway. The driver of that truck is in the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. None of the 231 passengers or crew members aboard that flight were hurt. United says it's investigating how this happened.
Yeah, alarming incidents tonight. Andrew Dimber, thank you. Now to a suspected and deadly outbreak of the hantavirus on a cruise ship in the Atlantic Ocean. 3 people have died and another is in intensive care. That's according to the World Health Organization. The outbreak allegedly happened on the MV Hondias cruise ship while it was sailing from Argentina to the coast of West Africa. Hantavirus infections are rare and typically linked to exposure from infected rodents. A frightening scene in Portland, Oregon. Authorities say a man drove an SUV packed with explosives into a popular athletic club. What officials are now saying about the driver who died. Here's ABC's Melissa Adon.
Tonight, video obtained by the Oregonian appears to show a man driving a car through an athletic club in Portland, Oregon.
Locations calling in says the vehicle drove through the front entrance and they're seeing a smoke and a large flames coming from the car.
Police say the driver intentionally rammed his car into the Multnomah Athletic Club, the largest private athletic and social club in the United States. The club telling ABC News, "We are aware of the reporting regarding the individual and can't confirm there were prior interactions involving this person and members of our community." They also say he was a former employee. The Oregonian reporting some neighbors said he appeared to have a fixation with the club. The crash causing a large explosion. The driver was killed.
That vehicle continued driving inside of the Mac Club, and it was shortly found engulfed in flames by the employees who called 911.
Officers sending out robots to sweep the area, finding several explosive devices. The robots removing propane tanks from the scene and detonating some of the IEDs.
It looked like there was an intent to detonate more than actually ultimately was detonated.
The FBI working with Portland officials. This ahead of the FIFA World Cup, in which Portland will host fans and watch parties for the nearest games in Seattle.
We're hoping to get through this.
With the Portland police chief believes there are no other threats and that this was an isolated incident and not domestic terrorism.
Okay, Melissa, Don, thank you for that. Now to a confrontation between the president of Cornell University and some students. The students say he hit them with his vehicle after a debate over the war in Gaza, but the president says he was the victim. Let's bring in ABC's investigative reporter, Olivia Rubin. Olivia, what more are you learning tonight?
With controversy tonight after that altercation between the president of Cornell University and a group of students, which unfolded in a campus parking lot after that debate on the war in Gaza. You see the moment right there in this video given to ABC by the student group. They say they approached the Cornell president, Michael Kotlikoff, in the hallway to ask about free speech on campus and walked with him to his car. Then they say he, quote, just immediately started reversing into us. But Kotlikoff telling a very different story, saying the group accosted him in the hallway, followed him across campus, and then started, quote, banging on the windows, blocking the car, and shouting. Kotlikoff saying he waited until he saw space behind the car and then was able to slowly maneuver out. And tonight, with so far no response from Cornell when we asked if they're now formally investigating.
Olivia Rubin, thank you. There's much more ahead on World News Tonight this Sunday. The news just coming in. Rudy Giuliani, the former mayor of New York City, hospitalized. And the up and down temperatures, millions bracing for dramatic shifts in the forecast. Next tonight, the news just coming in. Rudy Giuliani, the former mayor of New York City, is hospitalized in critical but stable condition. His spokesman saying that Giuliani is fighting with, quote, unwavering strength, but gave no additional details. Giuliani, a celebrated but polarizing public figure, is 81 years old. A massive fire tore through a marine science lab at the University of South Florida's St. Petersburg campus. More than 200 firefighters raced to the scene Saturday night. The university president says teams are working to see if any research material can be salvaged. Fire officials say the building is likely a total loss. The cause is under investigation. When we come back, the historic first and the run for the roses. To the index now and get set for a temperature roller coaster this week. Temps are going down in Denver from the 70s on Monday to the low 40s on Tuesday. In the Midwest, temps will dip into the 50s, but they're going up on the East Coast. New York could top 80 degrees by Tuesday. History made at the Kentucky Derby. Golden Tempo, a 23-1 long shot, came from way back to steal the 152nd Derby. That made Cherie DeVoe the first woman to train the winner in the race's history. DeVoe says she hopes her success will pave the way for more women with big dreams. She hasn't yet decided if Golden Tempo will race in the Preakness in 2 weeks. When we come back, America Strong, the miracle baby who was born twice. Finally tonight, America Strong, the rare surgery and the miracle baby. Here's Rita Roy.
Tonight in Orlando, Florida, one family celebrating their miracle baby, Cassian. A groundbreaking surgery allowing their son to be born not once, but twice, ultimately saving his life.
Our baby was getting sicker and sicker, and
want. We knew that we had to do something if there was anything to be done that could save Cassie's life.
We were on a race against time.
19 weeks into Kashira Joubert's pregnancy, doctors diagnosing Cassian with chaos, or congenital high airway obstruction syndrome, a very rare and often deadly condition where a baby's airway is blocked before birth. After one surgical procedure was unsuccessful, their doctors presented another option, one they'd never done before. Cassian briefly entering the world at just 25 weeks old, marking the first time a surgery like this has been successful for a baby like Cassian.
We were able to open mom's abdomen, her tummy, open the uterus itself, deliver only the baby's head outside of the uterus, expose the neck. Then we replaced the baby back into the uterus and we closed the uterus, and mom stayed in the hospital until delivery.
Cassian's family full of gratitude for the medical team that helped bring their baby boy into the world.
We're very pleased to be able to be successful with this first surgery.
Cassian faces at least 3 more surgeries before he turns 2 to address the blockage that keeps him on a ventilator. But on this long journey, small moments to pause and remember what it's all about.
I think we're planning a small party for his first birthday, the anniversary of the surgery that saved his life.
There were a lot of challenges where we had to be ready to say goodbye, but we said hello.
Amazing. Our thanks to Rena Roy. Good night.
David Muir, the most trusted anchor in America, the most watched anchor in America. Thank you for making World News Tonight with David Muir the #1 newscast in America.
I was playing with my car toys, and then I started smelling chicken nuggets, which I found it weird because mommy wasn't making chicken nuggets. And then I don't remember what happened, and then I woke up in the truck with people.
Fiverr Pro is where I find highly skilled talent across emerging areas like AI software development and complex web problems. See for yourself by going to pro.fiverr.com to hire vetted experts and use code DIARY for 10% off at checkout.
David Muir, ABC's World News Tonight, America's most watched newscast, now streaming same day with all the breaking news of the day on Disney Plus. Most watched, most trusted. Now on Disney Plus every night.
Breaking tonight, a popular discount airline abruptly shutting down. What this means for air travel and why this could be a very costly summer for drivers. First, Spirit Airlines, its final flights landing overnight, signs removed from airports, passengers scrambling to rebook with other carriers, and more than 15,000 employees out of work. Why a last-minute deal involving a government takeover fell apart and what the airline blames for its demise. Gas prices surging again, and now oil executives warning the worst may still be ahead. Their painful forecast for the summer driving season, why prices could climb even if the Strait of Hormuz reopens. Iran now saying the war with the U.S. is likely to resume, and the growing rift between the U.S. and its allies. President Trump now withdrawing thousands of troops from Germany. Also tonight, the major decision that blocks access to abortion pills sent by mail. A federal appeals court ruling that mail orders of mifepristone violate state abortion bans. That drug, one of the most common means of abortion, can now only be distributed in person or at clinics. Plus, a deadly crash. Police say a 14-year-old on an e-bike allegedly hitting and killing a Vietnam veteran. Why the boy's mother is now charged with aggravated manslaughter. Gone in seconds. Stunning images of what authorities are calling $1 million theft ring. Teams allegedly stripping wheels, rims, and catalytic converters. The DA saying they worked as quickly as a pit crew. 16 people now facing charges. Down to the wire in the NBA playoffs, the game-winning overtime shot, while LeBron and the Lakers move on to round 2. The surprise passenger buckled in, why this robot caused a big delay for one flight. And America Strong tonight, he's keeping Americans safe in the sky at 90 years young. The big surprise and what he says keeps him going.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is News Tonight.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us on this Saturday. I'm Whit Johnson. We begin tonight with the unfolding travel nightmare. Spirit, the no-frills discount airline, shutting down after 30 years, leaving flyers scrambling for options and forced to buy new plane tickets. The airline making its final flight in Dallas, Texas overnight. It struggled in recent years, filing for bankruptcy twice since 2024. But surging fuel costs from the war with Iran delivered the final and fatal blow. Frustrated passengers across the country are now dealing with canceled flights. Other airlines are trying to offer relief, but they too are facing financial strains, and thousands of Spirit's workers are now unemployed. The airline, known for its bright yellow planes and rock-bottom prices, was unable to secure a bailout from the federal government. ABC's Morgan Norwood leads us off from Newark Airport in New Jersey.
Tonight, Spirit Airlines, the no-frills disruptor that transformed the commercial aviation industry with its bare-bones, low-cost fares and bold marketing, shutting down after 3 decades.
End of an era right there.
Its final flight, 1833, touching down in Dallas just after midnight from Detroit. The airline now the latest business casualty as surging fuel costs from the war in Iran pushed it over the edge. Across the country, signage stripped from terminals, passengers stunned to find their flights canceled, thousands of people potentially now forced to book new flights.
I came here to Ghost Town this morning, but I didn't know what to do.
Alvin Harper was set to fly out of Newark to South Carolina to handle a family emergency. He says he ended up paying hundreds for a new flight.
That's $900 and something I've spent so far. But I'm looking forward to getting my money back from Spirit, but when? How?
The collapse comes after Spirit failed to secure a last-ditch $500 million lifeline from the government. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy addressing Spirit's collapse at Newark Airport. I asked him why the president's deal fell through.
What was the sticking point and what was the tension point?
In the end, this was a creditor issue. Again, they have the final say of whether they want to do a deal with the government.
Duffy also criticizing the Biden administration for blocking Spirit's proposed merger with JetBlue in 2024, calling it a massive mistake, pointing to the airline's bankruptcy battles prior to the war in Iran. But Spirit itself saying soaring fuel prices, quote, left us with no alternative but to pursue an orderly wind down of the company. Now, the airline enters into a liquidation process, partial refunds from its reserve funds expected to take days. The DOT says they are working with other carriers to roll out rescue fares, averaging around $200 for a one-way ticket, most likely higher than what passengers have paid for their tickets on a Spirit flight. But the fallout goes far beyond passengers. The airline now scrambling to get its more than 1,300 crew members back home, with hundreds more employees without a job.
It was kind of unreal, and I really haven't processed it all yet. I'll probably do the boo-hoo crying and all that other stuff once I get my car.
The Association of Flight Attendants now urging the government to step in and help those who have been laid off.
Many people are going to be harmed by this, and we need to make sure that there is an effort underway by the administration right away to lift people up.
And what there is relief for ticket holders tonight. Spirit says if you book directly through them through a card, those refunds should be automatic. However, if you went through a travel agency or say a third-party booking website, you want to start there. Lastly, if you use points or vouchers, those refunds will be handled through the bankruptcy process, which could take some time with.
Yeah, still so much uncertainty for those passengers. Morgan Norwood, we appreciate it. Growing concerns tonight about the state of the economy, with gas prices surging as high as $8 a gallon in parts of California. The cost of food and housing also ticking up, and the warning from oil executives amid the stalemate over the Strait of Hormuz. Here's ABC's Alex Burchett.
Pocketbook pain for millions of Americans tonight as they struggle to get by, with a gallon of gas climbing nearly 40 cents in just the last week and no end in sight. The national average now sitting at $4.44 a gallon, a 4-year high.
I have to get it home soon because it's horrible.
A new ABC News Washington Post Ipsos poll shows over 4 in 10 Americans have cut back on driving or cut other household expenses because of high gas prices. And those prices will increase at least 10 to 15 cents per gallon in the coming weeks due to stations rolling out their more costly summer blend.
If the Strait of Hormuz continues to be blocked or significantly impeded, we could see the national average pushing closer to $4.75 or even that $5 a gallon mark by Memorial Day.
Complications over the Strait of Hormuz have driven up oil prices more than $100 a barrel, Experts cautioning even once the strait is fully operational, it could take 1 to 2 months before the flow of oil is reestablished.
But with time, as the straits remain closed, those additional sources of supply will attrit, will run out of the inventory, and so we'll see an increasing impact on price.
Follow your dreams. With up to 597 miles per tank, the Subaru Crosstrek Hybrid. Dog tested, dog approved.
New finished Ultimate Quantum costs less than Cascade? This just makes sense.
It makes sense because nothing seems better than finish. It costs less per wash. That's why it makes sense.
Attention, Finish is an unbeatable clean and value.
Money and power, baby!
You stay with Choice Hotels, you get more of what you value. Like at the Comfort Inn, where kids value breakfast with options.
I don't eat options, just waffles.
Yogurt, cereal,
Just waffles.
my man. Book direct at choicehotels.com.
Friday, the Treasury Department issued a warning that shippers who pay Iranian tolls to travel the strait could face American sanctions. The rapid and sustained increase in energy prices leaving many Americans little time to adjust.
It's so much more expensive.
Those added costs often reflected in higher grocery bills. The most recent inflation report shows consumer prices in March surged at their fastest monthly pace since 2022. And in the housing market, the average rate on a 30-year fixed mortgage topped 6.1% this week, the highest level in more than a month. Well, and what the concern is that if oil stays at this level for a year, by one estimate, it will cost the typical household an extra $1,300 in gas and diesel, not including the fuel surcharge that some companies have already adopted, and then, of course, those rising airfare prices. With
Alex Brochet, our thanks to you. Next tonight, President Trump issuing a new warning to Iran as officials from that country say the war is likely to resume and the rift between the U.S. and its allies appears to be growing. Here's ABC's senior White House correspondent, Selena Wang.
Tonight, more than 24 hours after President Trump told Congress that hostilities with Iran have been terminated, Iran warning renewed conflict with the United States is likely. A senior Iranian military official saying in state media that evidence shows the U.S. is not committed to any agreements or treaties. The armed forces are fully prepared for any new adventures or foolishness from the Americans. President Trump telling Congress yesterday that the war is over, bypassing a legal deadline that requires congressional approval to continue military action. But just hours after sending that letter, Trump saying the U.S. might be better off without a deal.
They've got to make a bad deal. But if they make a deal at all, because frankly, maybe we're better off not making a deal at all.
With peace talks stalled, Trump issuing Iran this stark warning.
Do we want to go and just blast the hell out of them and finish them forever, or do we want to try and make a deal?
The U.S. naval blockade in full force and the Strait of Hormuz remains closed. The Trump administration now asking other countries to join a new international coalition to help reopen the strait. U.S. officials tell ABC News the coalition would coordinate diplomatic efforts and enforce sanctions. But that ask comes as Trump has repeatedly blasted our NATO allies for not getting directly involved in the Iran war. On Monday, the German chancellor publicly criticized the administration's handling of the war, saying the Americans clearly had no strategy and the U.S. is being humiliated by Iranian negotiators. Trump responding, ordering the Pentagon to withdraw 5,000 U.S. troops from Germany over the next 6 to 12 months. And tonight we're learning that the State Department has fast-tracked $8.6 billion in arms sales to partners in the Middle East, sidestepping congressional approval by invoking emergency powers. And since the Iran war began, the U.S. has already used that authority for billions more.
And Selena, on another subject here, Cuba is also responding to new threats from President Trump.
That's right, Whit. Last night, President Trump said that the U.S. would be taking over Cuba almost immediately after the war in Iran is over. And tonight, Cuba's president is firing back, saying, quote, "No aggressor, no matter how powerful, will find surrender in Cuba." It comes as Cuba's economy is struggling, with many going without power and even without food, Whit.
All right, Selena Wang for us tonight. And tune into This Week tomorrow morning. Martha Raddatz interviews Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy and top Armed Services Democrat Senator Jack Reed about the ongoing fallout from the Iran war. Now to the Supreme Court facing yet another major ruling on abortion. A pharmaceutical company filed an emergency appeal earlier today. This after a lower court on Friday blocked a popular abortion pill from being dispensed through the mail. Here's ABC's investigative reporter, Olivia Rubin.
Tonight, the most sweeping abortion restrictions since the 2022 Supreme Court decision overturning Roe v. Wade taking effect around the country. A 3-judge appeals court panel, 2 appointed by President Trump, temporarily barring women from accessing the abortion pill mifepristone by mail. The ruling a win for Louisiana, which sued in part on claims the by-mail pill skirted its statewide abortion ban. The FDA approved mifepristone in 2000, but eased restrictions in 2023 under the Biden administration, no longer requiring women to see a certified healthcare provider in person. But under the Trump administration, HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. ordering an FDA review of the safety and efficacy of the drug.
It's very efficacious and has less than 1% complication rate. For people living in rural counties or in states with strict abortion laws, people who cannot access a health provider in person, having the option of medication abortions via telemedicine is potentially life-saving.
The ruling now significantly curtailing access to one of the most common abortion methods, medication abortion, which in 2023 accounted for more than 60% of all abortions in the country, according to Guttmacher Institute.
And with this case now before the Supreme Court tonight, 2 manufacturers of the pill asking the nation's high court to restore access. But with the Supreme Court has been here before. Just 2 years ago, it unanimously rejected a similar challenge to the pill, though critically it left the door open to similar challenges. With
Olivia Rubin reporting tonight. Now to a California mom charged with involuntary manslaughter after her 14-year-old son allegedly struck an 81-year-old man with an e-bike. The Vietnam veteran and substitute teacher later died from his injuries. Here's ABC's Jacqueline Lee.
Tonight, a teen's alleged ride turns fatal, and his mother is now charged with involuntary manslaughter. 50-year-old Tommy Jo Meyer is behind bars after police say her 14-year-old son illegally rode an e-motorcycle and fatally struck a Vietnam veteran. 81-year-old Ed Ashman was walking home from his job as a substitute teacher when police say the teen was doing wheelies and hit him. Authorities say the teen fled the scene as Ashman lay critically injured. Ashman was a captain in the United States Marine Corps and flew combat missions in Vietnam. Ashman died in the hospital a week later from his injuries. Orange County District Attorney Todd Switzer saying in a statement, an American hero who survived flying combat missions in Vietnam could not survive walking across the street in Lake Forest because of a 14-year-old child. The e-motorcycle allegedly involved in the collision goes up to 58 miles per hour, according to authorities.
I'm charging the mother because she provided the motorcycle. She was aware of it. She was warned on a prior occasion that this was a dangerous vehicle.
Meyer is facing a maximum sentence of 7 years and 8 months in state prison if convicted on all counts. She will be arraigned later this month.
Jacqueline Lee, thanks so much. Here in New York City, more than a dozen people were indicted for their alleged involvement in an auto theft ring. Prosecutors compared them to a race car pit crew. Here's ABC's Ika Jachi.
Tonight, new images of what investigators call a pit crew of car thieves moving fast and furious through Bronx streets under the cover of darkness. You can see the 3-person crew piling out of a stolen car, according to prosecutors, masked, in gloves, with a jack and milk crates, and in minutes, police say their victim's car is up on crates, the tires, rims, and the car's catalytic converter gone.
They allegedly worked fast like a race car pit crew in the dead of night.
Tonight, 16 alleged members of the Trinitario Street Gang now indicted in a nearly 1,000-count case. Grand larceny, auto stripping, and more, accused of more than 250 thefts across the Bronx alone. Prosecutors say they hit between midnight and 5 a.m. Then, drivers waking up to work only to find an empty space with their cars propped up on crates, stranded and facing thousands in repairs. Tonight, several of the 16 alleged crew members are now in custody awaiting the September court date with with authorities saying more arrests are possible. Now, prosecutors say the message is simple. They're going after these pit crew style rings wherever they operate.
All right, Ike Ajachi, thank you. There is much more ahead on World News Tonight this Saturday, including a deadly mass shooting in Texas, what police say led up to the shots fired, and a look into the future, trucks making deliveries with no one at the wheel. Stay with us. Next tonight, a deadly mass shooting in Amarillo, Texas. 2 people were killed, 10 others injured in the overnight shooting. Police say the shooting broke out over a dispute at a party inside an apartment. No arrests have been reported. When we come back, the overtime winner that became an instant classic in the NBA playoffs. To the NBA playoffs now, LeBron James led the LA Lakers into the second round Friday night. The Lakers beat the Houston Rockets in 6 games. Toronto's RJ Barrett had the shot of the night, somehow finding the bottom of the net in the final seconds of overtime to beat the Cleveland Cavaliers and tie the series at 3 games each. And the Detroit Pistons came from 24 points down to beat the Orlando Magic. That forces Game 7, and you can watch it right here on ABC tomorrow at 3:30 Eastern. A major first for the trucking industry. A startup called Bot Auto delivered freight this week without a driver. This wasn't a demonstration, but the first paid commercial delivery 230 miles from Houston to Dallas overnight. Industry officials predict could be up to 170,000 autonomous trucks on America's highways. And while we're talking about robots, a Southwest Airlines flight from Oakland to San Diego was delayed because of an unusual passenger. This right here is Bebop, a robotics company, was transporting it for a demonstration. It was too heavy to be checked, so its handlers bought a seat. Southwest then said its lithium-ion battery was too big, so they confiscated it. At last word, the handlers were still trying to get it back. Still ahead, America Strong, celebrating a TSA veteran who shows no signs of slowing down. Finally tonight, America Strong and a TSA milestone.
Morning, lady.
At John Wayne Airport in Orange County, 90-year-old Lawrence Santucci still works at TSA checkpoint and shows up before sunrise.
He's inspirational.
The Army veteran is the oldest TSA officer in the country, but working for the TSA was not part of his original plan. After an unexpected financial hardship, he joined in 2008 when he was in his 70s.
I had to come back to work because I wanted to save my house.
What began as a way to rebuild became a second career.
I try to instill on people when they come to work, you're here to protect life and property.
And this week, his usual early arrival came with a special surprise.
Happy birthday, Dad.
His daughter Marie says service is what keeps him going.
He loves our country and wants to serve others, and that's why he won't retire.
Santucci says that work ethic started long before the TSA.
At 13, I built my first shoe shine box.
At 90 years young, Lawrence Santucci still has a pep in his step, finding pride and purpose at the airport.
What am I going to do if I retire? Sit down?
A true inspiration. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great night.
David Muir, the most trusted anchor in America, the most watched anchor in America. Thank you for making World News Tonight with David Muir the #1 newscast in America.
Your next breakdown could be anytime, anywhere.
Get covered today and make Endurance pay for it. It was like almost a $6,000 job. Endurance covered it.
Right now, you can get $300 off any plan. So call and get your free quote now.
Fiverr Pro provides quality vetted talent that is specialized, trusted, and operates at the same level as our internal team. See for yourself by going to pro.fiverr.com to hire vetted experts and use code DIARY for 10% off at checkout.
David Muir, ABC's World News Tonight, America's most watched newscast, now streaming same day with all the breaking news of the day on Disney Plus. Most watched, most trusted. Now on Disney Plus every night.
Tonight, breaking news as we come on the air in the West. The chaos of America's airports with lawmakers on Capitol Hill set to leave on their 2-week break tomorrow with TSA workers still not getting paid. President Trump just a short time ago saying he will step in. Steve Osunsami standing by with late news coming in now. Also breaking tonight, just days after that deadly crash at LaGuardia, that passenger jet and a fire truck, tonight there's news just coming in now that there's now been a harrowing close call, this time a packed United flight and a military Black Hawk in its path. The air traffic controller can be heard saying, "This is not good." The war in Iran tonight, and just in this evening, dramatic new video appearing to show the moment a missile comes dangerously close to shooting down an American F-18 fighter jet over Iran. Our reporter standing by. Also breaking, President Trump has just revealed he is now giving Iran 10 more days to open the Strait of Hormuz, with his threat to bomb Iranian power plants. His 5-day deadline was set to end tomorrow. Tonight here, the interview with Savannah Guthrie. What she says her brother, a retired military pilot, immediately knew about their mother's case. And for the first time, the guilt Savannah says she feels if her mother was targeted because of her high-profile job.
I just say I'm so sorry, Mommy. I'm so sorry.
And what Savannah now says about 2 of the ransom notes. There are tornado watches as we come on the air tonight. The severe storm threat in multiple states right now, the Midwest, then moving east. New York City to Boston tomorrow. The dramatic images tonight, the daring cliff rescue, a woman stuck right there on the rocks, waves crashing below. The driver tonight accused of crashing through an airport gate right onto the airfield, trying to get into a plane while it was taxiing. Tonight, the race against time to save a humpback whale, and you'll see it. America's strong, and opening day for Major League Baseball, a 109-year-old veteran, and a dream come true tonight. And we remember a famous singer tonight, so many hits, including Summer Breeze.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight with David Muir.
Good evening. We begin tonight here with several breaking stories. This major close call, a United passenger flight and a military Black Hawk helicopter. The air traffic controller can be heard saying, "This is not good." But first, we do have breaking news tonight involving the TSA workers who have gone weeks now without pay. Tonight, with lawmakers set to leave on their 2-week break tomorrow and no deal in sight, President Trump just a short time ago saying he will step in. Steve Osunsami leading us off with the breaking news.
The lawmakers who could end this chaos tonight at America's airports are set to leave for a 2-week spring break tomorrow. Meanwhile, the 4-hour lines through security are back tonight at Houston's largest airport.
I just feel like it's unacceptable. Like, it should not be happening.
The lines in Houston are so long that they're asking TSA workers in Dallas to travel across the state to help out. Our Christian Cordero is there.
Between basketball games and major conventions, it's busier than it has been here at Bush Intercontinental Airport. The line stretches outside before passengers are ushered inside, past several ICE agents who are helping direct traffic. And once you get to this point, you have about 2 hours to go.
The back and forth in Washington continues, with Republicans offering what they're calling a last and final offer to Democrats, who are demanding sweeping policy reforms for ICE agents, including taking off those masks. The president tonight is adding pressure.
They need to end the shutdown immediately, or we'll have to take some very drastic measures.
In Houston, New Orleans, and Atlanta, around 4 out of every 10 TSA officers without paychecks aren't coming to work. The New York City airports, Baltimore, and Philadelphia aren't that far behind. Some of the ICE agents sent by the president to help, seen walking around, have now received training and are checking IDs at checkpoints and helping with baggage flow. And their leaders in Washington tonight are celebrating one ICE agent at New York's JFK Airport, seen here on a security camera, rushing to save the life of a 1-year-old child who was choking. But the financial realities of TSA workers are hard. With starting salaries around $35,000 a year, many are relying on food banks and donating blood to make ends meet.
So let's bring in Steve Osunsami with us live tonight. Steve, I understand, even as we just came on the air tonight, there's breaking news on this. The president putting out a message on social media saying he will sign an executive order involving TSA pay.
That's right, David, and the president's message, which just crossed just a short while ago, he says that I'm going to sign an order instructing the Secretary of Homeland Security to immediately pay our TSA agents in order to address this emergency situation. If this doesn't happen, tomorrow these TSA workers will miss yet another paycheck, knowing full well that the ICE agents who've been sent to the airport and the members of Congress about to leave for vacation are all still getting paid.
David.
So let's hope they'll get paid. Steve Osunsami on the breaking news tonight. Steve, thank you. There is another breaking headline at this hour. We have just learned of a harrowing close call. Just days after that deadly crash at LaGuardia, the passenger jet and a fire truck. There's news just coming in tonight of a packed United flight this time and a military Black Hawk in its path. The air traffic controller can be heard saying, "This is not good." Here's Trevor Ault now.
Just days after that horrific and deadly crash at LaGuardia Airport, that passenger jet slamming into a fire truck on the runway, tonight there's news of a dangerous close call in Southern California. A military Black Hawk helicopter crossing in front of a packed passenger plane as it attempted to land. Listen to the concern of air traffic controllers when they realized what happened.
We're going to be addressing that.
Authorities say a United Airlines flight with 168 passengers and crew on board was on final approach just moments from landing at John Wayne Airport near Los Angeles when the two aircraft came so close it triggered the plane's anti-collision alert system.
The alarm that the United Jet got in its cockpit was the most serious alarm possible. So it told that United Jet, you need to level off right now or you're going to hit that helicopter.
United says the jet pilots saw the chopper, immediately leveling the aircraft to avoid it after the alert. Air traffic control had warned the pilots beforehand to watch out for traffic, but afterward asked those pilots what happened.
United 589, I just want to clarify here, did you get the traffic call reference the helicopter, or did they restrict your altitude or anything?
This close call comes just over a year after a Black Hawk military helicopter collided with an American Airlines flight over the Potomac, killing 67 people. And just days after that collision at LaGuardia's runway, where an early report is raising concerns about air traffic controller staffing, new NTSB video shows the mangled wreckage. Investigators probing through metal and wires. They're also noting that fire truck's lack of transponders, that in this case would have allowed the controllers to know where it was before the disaster.
And David, as for this most recent close call here in Southern California, the NTSB says they are aware of this incident and the FAA is investigating.
David, Trevor Ault with us tonight. Trevor, thank you. There are breaking developments in the war in Iran. Just in tonight, dramatic new video appearing to show the moment a missile comes dangerously close to an American F-18 fighter jet over Iran. Matt Rivers from the region with these images tonight.
Tonight, dramatic new video appears to show the moment a missile came dangerously close to shooting an American F-18 fighter jet out of the skies over Iran. The video posted to X. U.S. Central Command tonight saying no fighter jets have been shot down by Iran. But one source, while not confirming the authenticity of the video, tells ABC News that an F-18 in the area did narrowly dodge an Iranian surface-to-air missile over southern Iran in recent days. It comes as Iran launching new attacks across the region, firing nearly a dozen missiles at Israel today alone. Debris smashing into this neighborhood near Tel Aviv, sending that car flying into the air. And tonight, Israel claiming it killed the commander of Iran's Navy, Alireza Taimsir, saying he led the effort to shut down the Strait of Hormuz, choking the global oil supply. The Pentagon saying he had organized attacks against shipping for 8 years.
David, sources telling ABC News tonight Israel racing to strike as many targets inside of Iran as it can ahead of any potential ceasefire. David?
Matt Rivers tonight. Matt, thank you. Developing right now, President Trump revealing late today he is now giving Iran 10 more days to open the Strait of Hormuz with his threat to bomb Iranian power plants. His 5-day deadline was set to end tomorrow. Rachel Scott, White House.
Tonight, President Trump announcing he's extending the deadline for Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz by 10 days until just after Easter. If Iran doesn't comply, the president says he'll bomb their crucial power plants.
They want to make a deal. The reason they want to make a deal is they have been just beaten.
Iran flatly insists there are no talks, but acknowledges trading messages with the U.S. using Pakistan as a go-between. Today in his cabinet meeting, the president says he doesn't care if there's a deal or not.
I read a story today that I'm desperate to make a deal. If I was desperate, he'd be the first to know. Let's get the hell out of there. I'm the opposite of desperate. I don't care.
On Capitol Hill, growing concern from Republicans and Democrats that President Trump is preparing to put American boots on the ground. Up to 1,500 paratroopers from the Army's 82nd Airborne Division now heading to the Middle East.
The presidency is bent on a path toward putting our sons and daughters in harm's way. That is reflected in the classified briefings I received, as well as the public actions.
The Republican chairman of the House Armed Services Committee complains we're just not getting enough answers, a theme from several Republicans today.
Should the American people be prepared for American troops on the ground in Iran? And is that something that you're comfortable with?
I don't know. I think that if the president decides to commit troops on the ground, he needs to come talk to us in Congress. That's a major step.
Is that something that you would be comfortable with personally?
I hope it would not come to that. That would be a concern to me.
Again, David, the president has now extended his deadline for Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz for a second time. His initial deadline was on Monday, then he pushed it till tomorrow. Now he's announcing that he's giving Iran an additional 10 days to reopen the strait or face the consequences, David.
Our coverage of the war in Iran tonight. Rachel Scott of the White House. Rachel, thank you. We move on now to the deeply emotional interview with Savannah Guthrie. What she says her brother, a retired military pilot, immediately knew about their mother's case. And for the first time tonight, the guilt Savannah says she feels if her mother was targeted because of Savannah's high-profile job. And what Savannah says about the ransom messages received by the family. Here's Aaron Katursky.
Tonight, for the first time, Savannah Guthrie on the phone call from her sister, telling her mom was gone.
I said, is everything okay? And she said, no. She said, Mom's missing. And I said, what? What are you talking about? She said, she's gone. And she was in a panic. I was in a panic.
At first, Savannah thought there must have been a medical episode.
We thought that she must have had like some kind of medical episode in the night and that somehow, the paramedics had come because the back doors were propped open, and that didn't make any sense. We thought maybe they came and there's a stretcher and they took her out the back, but her phone was there and her purse was there and all her things.
They knew their mother would not have wandered off.
My mom, she was in tremendous pain. Her back was very bad. She was trying to, on a good day, she could walk down to the mailbox and get the mail, but most days not. So there was no wander off. And the doors were propped open.
Yeah.
And there was blood on the front doorstep. And the Ring camera had been yanked off.
Savannah says her brother Cameron suspected immediately their mother had been taken.
He said, I think she's been kidnapped for ransom. And I said, what? What? And then, it sounds so like how dumb could I be? But I didn't want to believe. I just said, do you think because of me? And I said, I'm sorry, sweetie, but yeah, maybe.
And Savannah revealing how difficult that has been to think her mother might have been targeted because of her.
That it's because she's my mom, and somebody thought, oh, that girl, that lady has money, we can make a quick buck. That would make sense, but we don't know. But yeah, that's probably, which is too much to bear. To think that I brought this to her bedside, that it's because of me. And I just say, I'm so sorry, Mommy.
After Nancy Guthrie disappeared, the family received a ransom demand that Savannah now believes came from the kidnapper.
I believe the 2 notes that we received, that we responded to, I tend to believe those are real.
We received your message.
At the time, the family's response to those notes acknowledged the 84-year-old may no longer be alive. And tonight, Savannah remains haunted by video of the suspect.
It's just totally terrifying. And I can't imagine that is who she saw standing over her bed. No. I can't. It's too much.
Savannah's doing this interview, David, hoping to convince someone who knows to just tell her where her mother is. And there's another reason too, David. She'd like to shine a light on all missing persons cases around the country. David?
Aaron, thank you. It's just excruciating to listen to Savannah. We remain hopeful for Savannah and her siblings, and of course for her mother, Nancy Guthrie, that there's some sort of closure for this family. We'll continue to follow as well. We turn to the economy now. One more note in this block. The stock market amid rising oil and gas prices and the uncertainty over Iran tonight. The Dow falling 469 points today. The NASDAQ dropping 521 points, falling into correction territory. The S&P 500 down 114 points. When we come back tonight, the tornado watch is at this hour. Severe storms in the middle of this country, then moving east, New York City up to Boston tomorrow. We'll have the weather map for you in a moment here. Also, the dramatic images tonight. Look at this, the daring cliff rescue. That's a woman stuck on the rocks, waves crashing below. How this plays out. Also tonight, the driver accused of crashing through an airport gate right onto the airfield, trying to get into a plane while it was taxiing. We'll be right back. Tonight, there are tornado watches up across multiple states at this hour. Those tornado watches in Pennsylvania and Ohio. Heavy rain, damaging winds, large hail. This system from Chicago all the way east. Heavy rain tonight into tomorrow for New York City right up into Boston. A herring rescue on San Francisco's ocean cliffs. Look at this. A woman seen clinging to the rocks right there. Waves crashing down below her. A firefighter rappelling down the cliff to reach her, bringing her to safety. There's no word tonight on how the woman got there. Tonight, a driver accused of crashing through a fence at the Daytona Beach airport. Police say he drove onto an active runway and attempted to get into a plane with its engine already running. He now faces multiple charges tonight. When we come back here, we remember a famous singer tonight. So many hits, including Summer Breeze. And look at this, the race against time tonight to save a humpback whale. We'll be right back. To the index of other news tonight, the race to save that humpback whale off Germany's north coast this week. Rescuers still desperately trying to free a stranded humpback whale from shallow waters. The whale was first spotted on Monday, weighing about 15 tons. Officials say it may have been tangled in a fishing net. They say the whale does remain alert, which is good news. Passing a note tonight, Dash Crofts, the last member of the 70s rock duo Seals and Crofts, has died.
Summer breeze makes me feel fine.
Best known for hits like Summer Breeze and Diamond Girl, known for their colorful harmonies, of course. Dash Crofts was 87. When we come back here tonight, America Strong, opening day for Major League Baseball, and you have to see this, a 109-year-old veteran and a dream come true.
ABC World News Tonight with David Muir, sponsored by Bristol Myers Squibb.
Tonight on opening day, a dream come true. Tonight on Major League Baseball's opening day, meet 109-year-old Arthur Green. Happy opening day to you, Arthur. Arthur is a lifelong Baltimore Orioles fan, the team asking him to throw out the honorary first pitch.
All right, Arthur, it's your pitch.
And here's why. Not only is Arthur a fan, but he's a hero, serving in the Army in World War II and the Korean War as staff sergeant and platoon leader. Through the years and through his service, playing baseball and never missing a game of his beloved Orioles. The team surprising him, making him fan of the year. We learned about Arthur because his daughter Myra has worked here at ABC News for more than 40 years. And when we learned of her father on opening day, we told Myra he's America Strong.
Please welcome 109 years young, Arthur Green.
There she is, walking about to the pitcher's mound, Orioles at 109 on his jersey at his pitch. Father and daughter in the stands after.
Now, we're just enjoying the game.
Watching their Orioles win. So Myra, thank you for what you've done here at ABC, and Mr. Green, thank you for your service. Tonight telling us he had a good time, and we figured because his Orioles won. Staff Sergeant Green, we salute your service and great pitch. I'll see you tomorrow.
David Muir, the most trusted anchor in America, the most watched anchor in America. Thank you for making World News Tonight with David Muir the #1 newscast in America.
I think the best thing about Manus, hands down, is that it actually delivers me what I want. Let me type in my prompts. So I've typed in a simple prompt about building a pizza shop website. Let's go ahead and see what it can do. Let's check this out. The single prompt, in about 10 minutes of waiting, I got an entirely finished website.
Give it a try. Download now.
We make sure that when you're here,
You are going to become a professional. Every resource that you need, we have it available. Do not feel discouraged. We're here to make a difference for you and your family, and at the same time for the community.
It just keeps failing me time after time after time, and I can't stand it. I now only use Manus. When I ask Manus to do something, it actually gives me a final product, and ChatGPT just walks me through a billion steps on how to get something done. Like, check this out. I'm gonna go ahead and hit build website. Let me type in my prompt. So I've typed in a simple prompt about building a pizza shop website. Let's go ahead and see what it can do. I kid you not, all I had to do was wait. I got an entirely finished website, everything laid out, fully interactable, customizable, and publishable at a single click.
Give it a try. Download now.
I don't know about you, but some of the most fun is having fun on the water and catching a few bass. Just make sure anytime you're getting ready to head out on a fishing trip, make sure you have all the proper licenses. You can get a hard card through GoOutdoorsFlorida.com. Make sure to jump online, get your license, be prepared for that next great outing, and catch a few fish. Tight lines, guys.
David Muir, ABC's World News Tonight, America's most watched newscast, now streaming same day with all the breaking news of the day on Disney Plus. Most watched, most trusted, now on Disney Plus every night.
Tonight, breaking news here. President Trump fires DHS Secretary Kristi Noem. The major shakeup tonight, President Trump ousting Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem just moments before she was set to go on stage to deliver a speech. After those immigration scenes in Minneapolis, the U.S. citizens shot dead, and the grilling on Capitol Hill, lawmakers asking Noem about the TV ads that she starred in, taxpayers paying more than $200 million for them. And tonight, who the president has now chosen to replace her. Rachel Scott, live on the Hill tonight. Also breaking developments in the war with Iran, the U.S. and Israel ramping up attacks tonight, targeting Iran's mobile missile launchers, Iran retaliating, striking an oil facility in Bahrain, Iran also targeting an airport. At least 15 countries now involved in this conflict. Thousands of Americans still trying to get out. And the first flight out of Dubai landing in New York City. Ian Panel reporting from the region again tonight. This evening, President Trump and what he told our Jonathan Karl, saying he should be personally involved in selecting Iran's next supreme leader. And on this war in Iran, the president telling John, some are now calling him the GOAT, the greatest of all time. Tonight, the major surge in oil and gas prices, the Dow losing nearly 800 points, where gas prices stand tonight and where they're headed. Also tonight here, authorities releasing chilling new video here at home. The deadly shooting and police takedown, the gunman wearing a t-shirt with an Iranian flag. The investigation and arrest tonight, a 22-year-old man arrested in the random killings of 3 women, 2 on a hiking trail, 1 in their home. Tonight, for the first time since the disappearance of her mother, Savannah Guthrie visiting the set of the Today Show. Her message and her future. News tonight on Britney Spears, she's been arrested. And America's Strong tonight, the new home for the elephants. And we'll take you there right here tonight.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is News Tonight with David Muir.
Good evening. We begin tonight here with the breaking news. President Trump firing his Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem. We have new reporting tonight, what led to the firing. And the war in Iran tonight. President Trump telling our Jonathan Karl that the president himself wants a hand in picking Iran's next supreme leader. First tonight, he's picking a new Secretary of Homeland Security after firing one of the most high-profile members of his cabinet. Tonight, sources telling ABC News Kristi Noem was told by the president that she was fired just moments before stepping onto a stage to deliver a speech in Nashville. The president's decision coming after 2 blistering days of hearings on Capitol Hill. A source telling ABC News the president was upset with multiple leadership failures. Of course, the country watched those scenes unfold, the 2 deadly shootings of U.S. citizens in Minneapolis, the mother of 3, Renee Good, and the killing of ICU nurse Alex Pretty. Noem refused to apologize for characterizing both of them as domestic terrorists, saying shortly after the killings it was domestic terrorism. Noem under scrutiny on a number of fronts, including an ad campaign paid for by the American taxpayers, more than $200 million for a campaign that starred Noem herself. She testified the president was aware of it. Tonight, President Trump replacing Noem with Republican Senator Mark Wayne Mullen, a vocal defender of the president's immigration crackdown. ABC's Rachel Scott leading us off from Capitol Hill tonight.
She was one of the most high-profile members of the cabinet. And tonight, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem is out, fired by President Trump, the first major shakeup of his second term.
Today they're letting me roll with that.
Noem's tenure defined by controversy and flashy photo ops. For the president, a $220 million taxpayer-funded ad campaign may have been the last straw.
I'm Kristi Noem.
The secretary seemed galloping through Mount Rushmore.
Anyone who searches for freedom can always find a home here.
Tuesday, Republican Senator John Kennedy grilling Noem about taxpayers paying for that campaign.
The president approved ahead of time you spending $220 million running TV ads across the country in which you are featured prominently.
Yes, sir, we went through the legal processes, did it
Did the
correctly,
president
worked
know
with
you were gonna do
OMB.
this?
Yes,
He did.
yes.
Okay.
Kennedy deeply skeptical.
That's not the president of the United States I know. And in fact, after the hearing, the president of the United States called me. Let me put it this way, his recollection and her recollection are different.
Tonight, administration sources telling me Noem's ouster was the culmination of her many unfortunate leadership failures. Flashpoints laid bare this week in two bruising congressional hearings. Noem was pressed on the chaos in Minnesota. Federal officers killing protesters Alex Preddy and Renee Good. Noem quickly characterizing the victims as domestic terrorists just hours after they were shot dead.
That is the definition of domestic terrorism.
Tuesday, the secretary refused to apologize.
Do you want to apologize for that characterization that they were domestic terrorists?
I will continue every day to get up and to work hard to give
All right, thank you.
everybody factual information.
Noem was also asked to explain her relationship with her powerful top aide, Corey Lewandowski, President Trump's former campaign manager, whose official role was a special government employee.
Secretary Noem, at any time during your tenure as Director of Department of Homeland Security, have you had sexual relations with Corey Lewandowski?
Mr. Chairman, I am shocked that we're going down and peddling tabloid garbage in this committee today.
Noem even called to task for writing in her book that she shot and killed her family's rambunctious puppy.
A 14-month-old dog is basically a teenager in dog years. You decided to kill that dog because you had not invested the appropriate time in training, and then you have the audacity to go into a book and say it's a leadership lesson about tough choices.
Today, President Trump announcing on social media that Noem was out. Sources tell us he called to inform her just minutes before she took the stage at a speech in Nashville. The president's pick to replace Noem, Oklahoma Senator Markwayne Mullin. I spoke to him on the Capitol steps.
Is there any learning lessons that you have picked up from Noem and ways in which you want to lead the agency
Listen,
with a different way?
Kristi is a freak. She was tasked with a very difficult job, and I think she has performed the best she can do underneath the circumstances.
Of course, Kristi Noem oversaw the president's deportation raids, all of those flashy photo ops. But tonight, she is no longer the face of that immigration crackdown. Instead, the president says he's moving her to a new role called Special Envoy for the Shield of the Americas. Though, David, it's unclear what exactly that is.
You'll be tracking this all week long for us, Rachel. Thank you. Live on the Hill. Now to the war in Iran tonight. The president telling ABC News today that he should be personally involved in choosing Iran's next supreme leader. The U.S. and Israel tonight wrapping up attacks targeting Iran's mobile missile launchers. Iran retaliating, striking an oil facility in Bahrain, some Iranian missiles avoiding interceptors. Iran also targeting an airport. At least 15 countries now involved in this conflict. Thousands of Americans still trying to get out of the Middle East. The first flight out of Dubai, landing in New York City today. Our chief foreign correspondent, Ian Pannell, from the region again tonight.
The US and Israel unleashing new waves of devastating attacks on Iran's ties, ramping up strikes against the regime. And then today, President Trump said the operation is far ahead of schedule.
We're destroying more of Iran's missiles and drone capability every single hour, knocking them out like nobody thought was possible.
The president urging regime change and telling our John Karl that he should have a role in picking Iran's next supreme leader, saying the Ayatollah Khamenei's son, Mujtaba, is not an acceptable option.
And I'm once again calling on all members of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, the military, and the police to lay down their arms. They're only going to be killed. And now is the time to stand up for the Iranian people and help take back your country.
And tonight, Secretary Pete Hegseth saying the amount of firepower over Iran is about to surge dramatically.
Iran is hoping that we cannot sustain this, which is a really bad miscalculation for the IRGC in Iran.
Israel releasing video of a mid-air dogfight over Iran. The IDF saying an Israeli F-35 stealth fighter shot down an Iranian warplane, marking the first ever confirmed air-to-air takedown by an F-35. US B-52 bombers striking Iranian ballistic missile and command and control facilities. And tonight, the war widening. Israel fighting on two fronts, striking Iran and Lebanon, pounding Beirut. Our Matt Rivers is there.
It sounds like incoming. Yeah, there's the explosion, series of explosions there. That's the latest Israeli airstrike. Hundreds of thousands of people were warned by the Israeli military to evacuate from there earlier today in advance of those airstrikes that we just heard.
But Iran's still striking back, today releasing video claiming to show the launch of a missile with multiple warheads. Dramatic video posted online capturing massive explosions as Iranian missiles slammed into an oil refinery in Bahrain. Air defense systems firing, but missing the missiles, no injuries reported. And for the first time since this war erupted, Azerbaijan says it was targeted by two Iranian drones. One landing near a school, another hitting an airport, causing injuries. Iran denies attacking the country. And with more US troops heading to the region, a new warning from Iran tonight, saying thousands will be killed if the US dares launch a ground offensive. One Iranian official saying, "We're waiting for you." Thousands of Americans still struggling to escape the war-torn region. The first direct flight from Dubai arriving in New York today. The State Department confirming the first charter flights took off, and they're surging additional flights and ground transport to help get Americans out. 25,000 flights have been cancelled since the war began. Officials say at least 20,000 Americans have already returned to the US since Saturday, at least 10,000 helped by the task force.
Then the war started.
Ryan Rivera Cabrera, a college student from Boston, was trapped in Dubai after the war broke out, telling ABC News the US government did very little to help him.
Really, every time we contact a federal resource, they would just say to shelter in place and, aim to find a commercial flight.
Cabrera saying he didn't feel safe until he landed in New York today.
I didn't feel relief until the wheels started running on the floor just a few hours ago. That's when I finally was able to take a sigh, relief.
We saw my witnesses. Charles Lowe from New Jersey, also on that flight back to the US, saying he saw missiles flying over his head in Dubai.
It's not usual to have missiles intercepted above your head.
How difficult was it to get a plane out there?
Impossible.
David, with the US warning the war's about to surge dramatically, Israel's chief of staff also saying strikes are going to ramp up in what he calls phase 2 of this war.
David, Ian Panama live in Tel Aviv again tonight, Ian, thank you. And as we reported, President Trump telling Jonathan Karl today he wants to be personally involved in choosing Iran's next supreme leader. The president also telling John many are now calling him the GOAT, the greatest of all time. Here's John Karl.
Tonight, that extraordinary declaration. President Trump telling me that he must be the one to approve the next leader of Iran. We don't want them to put anybody in there unless it is approved by us. The president told me he wants to ensure a future U.S. president doesn't face a hostile Iran. We don't want some president in 10 years to get stuck with this problem and not know what to do with it. In a lengthy phone conversation, Trump sounded triumphant, telling me, quote, "They are calling me the GOAT, greatest of all time." Referring to the war on Iran, Trump asked, "How do you like the performance? I mean, Venezuela is obvious. This might be even better." As for how long the war will last, the president said, "Well, there are many people who say it's already over. It's not over to me. It's over when I want it to be." President Trump is just 15 months into his second term, and he has launched military operations in 8 different countries. That is quite a change, David, from his first term. As he told me today, in my first term, I built the military. In my second term, I am using it.
John Karl talking with the president today. John, thank you. Now to gas prices and a plunging stock market today. The Dow Jones dropping 784 points. The NASDAQ and S&P 500 also closing down. Tonight, where are gas prices now? Elizabeth Schulze continues to track this for us. Elizabeth?
David, stocks tumbling on fears the war will cause long-term disruptions in the oil market. Tonight, oil spiking above $80 a barrel as Iran launches a new wave of attacks on oil facilities and on a tanker off of Kuwait. Video of that strike shared on X. Shipping traffic in the Strait of Hormuz is still halted as the price of gas soars, now $3.27 a gallon for the national average. That's the highest in almost 2 years. Prices up almost 30 cents from last week. And Gas Buddy says it's heading to $3.50 in the next 2 weeks. Higher fuel costs likely rippling into higher prices across the economy. David.
Elizabeth Schulze. Elizabeth, thank you. And tonight, ABC News here with new reporting on what the U.S. has targeted underground in Iran. Martha Raddatz at the region as well.
Tonight, the U.S. and Israel pummeling Iranian missile bases deep underground. ABC News verifying that 13 of the underground facilities have been damaged or destroyed. The Israeli Army Chief of Staff claiming 60% of the launchers have now been taken out. But for American taxpayers, it's coming with a steep price tag. One estimate by the Center for Strategic and International Studies, a bipartisan think tank, puts the cost at $3.7 billion for the first 100 hours alone. That's more than $891 million per day. The Pentagon's top policy official, however, unable or unwilling to put a price tag on the war when pressed by members of Congress.
Okay, and what about cost? Can you say how much this will cost the American people?
I'll get back to you, ma'am. I can't give you an answer at this point.
But even though costly, late today, the Pentagon making the case that it's working, and there has been a major drop in retaliatory strikes by Iran.
Ballistic missile attacks have decreased by 90% since day one. Drone attacks have decreased by 83% since day one.
6 American soldiers have been killed so far in this war, including 2 just identified. 45-year-old Major Jeffrey O'Brien from Iowa and 54-year-old Chief Warrant Officer 3 Robert Marzan from California. They were killed in a drone strike at a tactical operations center in Kuwait. And David, those strikes on Iranian missile facilities are expected to intensify tonight. David?
Martha Raddatz live in Jerusalem. Martha, thank you. Back in the U.S., police tonight releasing chilling new body camera video of that suspected terror attack in Austin, Texas. The alleged gunman wearing a T-shirt with an Iranian flag. You can see the video showing the chaotic scene outside a bar. Authorities say the suspect fired a handgun from an SUV and continued with an assault-style rifle. At least 3 people killed, including 2 college students. Officers confronting the suspect, killing him at the scene. When we come back tonight, 3 women killed, authorities say attacked at random, 2 on a hiking trail, 1 at home. There's news coming in tonight of an arrest. Also, for the first time since the disappearance of her mother, Savannah Guthrie, visiting the set of the Today Show, her new message and her future. Also news tonight about Britney Spears. She's been arrested, what we've learned. And the big headline involving the home of the Brady Bunch. We'll be right back. Tonight, a suspect is under arrest in southwest Colorado in the killings of 3 women in Utah. Police say 22-year-old Ivan Miller targeted the women at random, the victims in their 30s, 60s, and 80s. 1 was killed at her home, 2 killed on a hiking trail. No word on a motive. Tonight, for the first time since the disappearance of her mother, Savannah Guthrie visiting the set of the Today Show. Guthrie tearfully embracing coworkers. She does plan to return, no decision on when, saying, quote, I still have hope and I'm still me, saying, I don't know what version of me that will be, but it will be. Savannah and her siblings offering a $1 million reward for information leading to Nancy Guthrie's recovery. And it was great to see Savannah back today. When we come back here tonight, news about Britney Spears and her arrest. We also have news tonight on the home, that famous home, of the Brady Bunch in a moment. To the index of other news, Britney Spears arrested on suspicion of DUI in Ventura, California. Sources tonight telling ABC News police received calls of a BMW swerving, nearly crashing. Spears was released overnight. Tonight, her rep saying Britney is going to take the right steps and comply with the law. The iconic Brady Bunch home is now a landmark tonight. Council members in Los Angeles designated the home as an historic cultural monument. The exteriors of the iconic home featured in that famous sitcom, of course, from the 60s and 70s. When we come back, America Strong, the new home for the elephants right here in the U.S. And they're giving us a tour in a moment.
ABC World News Tonight with David Muir. Sponsored by Nervive Nerve Relief. Feel alive with Nervive.
Finally tonight here, the endangered elephants with a place to call home. Tonight here, the mission, One American Zoo out to save the endangered elephants. It's opening day at the San Diego Zoo Safari Park's spectacular new Elephant Valley, the largest project in the zoo's 109-year history. Visitors able to get closer to the endangered African savanna elephants than ever before. The sprawling 13 acres allowing the elephants to roam freely. The trees and plants native to Africa, meant to mirror their natural landscape. The years-long project made possible with more than 4,000 donors and is part of the nonprofit San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance, dedicated to global wildlife research and conservation. And right here tonight, they did it. Marco Witt, Wildlife Ambassador at the San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance.
David, you can literally see eyelashes. You can even see the hairs growing out the top of their head.
Marco giving all of us a tour.
Behind me right now, you can see Micaiah playing with her family here, and this is what it's all about. So I invite all of you to come here and have a wonderful experience.
Thank you for the tour. I'll see you tomorrow.
David Muir, the most trusted.
Okay, guys, appreciate having you guys join me today for the live. I really appreciate you guys. I do have to head out and run some errands, but it was fun watching the live and see what's going on around the world. Well, around the world and the United States. You guys know I used to go live almost every day for months, and I've just a lot of work, gas prices and everything came up, stress, all that stuff that we all go through. So I just had to take a break, but I'm going to try to go ahead and go live again. I'm actually in the middle of doing some studying while I was watching all this stuff. So tune in tomorrow where we're going to, go back and find some news around the country, around the world, and, spend some time with your boy again. Again, my channel is just a mixed review of a lot of stuff with political news. I used to do a lot of hunting and firearm review. Because I've been in school for the past 2 years, I've kind of slowed down a little bit, but I'm gonna slowly try to get back into that, guys. And, I do a lot of motorcycle stuff because I have 3 motorcycles. I have a Kawasaki Vulcan 2000. I have a Kawasaki EN 550. I have a Honda Shadow Aero 750. So I'm into motorcycles, trucks, cars. You guys know that I have a Belgian Malinois. I love animals, especially dogs. I'm in the gym. I post a lot of gym stuff a lot of times. So this channel is not necessarily about any one thing, but it's about everything that involves in my life, as does most channels. There's no faking it here with anything. I don't fake anything that I do. Anything you see on the channel is things that I actually do. And just watching the news, I just bring people along for the ride. Guys, if you like what you see so far, if you like what you hear, go ahead, like, subscribe, and share the video. And with that said, guys, I hope you guys have a wonderful day. I hope you guys have an even better weekend and an even great summer. With that said, guys, have a good day. Thank you.